I'm testing my. How does the gain sound on your guys' side? Does it sound like it's too much? Not enough?
It sounds fine to me.
Okay, good. I like where it is right now, so I don't really want to mess with it at all. Excuse me, I burped.
So
I will say your video is a little choppier than normal.
Interesting. Okay. I don't think I have anything crazy running in the background.
Yeah, Alex's looks fine.
This is why I really need a new computer.
Yeah.
You guys got to talk to Carmen.
Get her on the podcast. We'll talk to her.
I would if she spent any time here while we were recording the podcast, but she said it's always, I don't want to be in the way. I don't want to be a bother. I'm like, you never are. It's fun when you interrupt. I digress.
Let's not go.
I think I have too much Chromes running. Actually, I think I might kill. Discord's not too bad. Chrome is being stupid. Let's just kill Chrome and restart it. Alex, I thought you got a haircut.
I did, but I kept all of the front because I like the front, but it doesn't look. And I also don't have any product in it right now, so it's completely because it's too hot to do anything.
What you're saying is you don't want the product melting down your face.
Yeah, I don't want it to just sear into my brain.
Yeah, I mean it's doing that regardless, but
yeah. Yeah, I got the hair swoosh the way that I was experimenting with this one because it's been so long. Even though with the headset, it also just doesn't look any different.
Got my water.
Good job.
I have so much drink.
I has water and I has Diet Cokes.
I have
sponsored.
I have a hard apple cider with strawberries.
If we were sponsored by
which brand?
I would be.
It's Downey's Farm. I went and picked it up today. We went strawberry picking today. That was fun.
Lovely. I'm sure we'll talk about that on Wednesday.
Yep.
But tonight, we Last of Us.
Man, I have so many twists and turns prepared for you guys.
Oh boy.
You are not going to see it coming.
Or just not looking forward to you doing that.
Well, now hold on. Hold on
disagree.
a second. You don't even know what kind of twists I'm prepared.
Oh God,
I have an idea.
He's getting the nipple clamps.
We're not at that stage in our relationship yet.
All right. Let's all open up time.is.
Yeah, I'm still getting all of the promos and things and such and things, but because my computer is, as usual, being slow as balls.
Let me know when you guys want to start recording.
I'm ready.
I don't even have it open yet, so.
You have the
also, hi chat.
Speak to me like this.
Man, you really do have some shit planned. You are smiling way too much.
That's like
it's fucking devious, that smile.
That's like the smile that you have when you push a 5-year-old off a fire escape. Like, that's really concerning. I mean, not me, but like somebody who would do that would smile like that.
All I'm going to say is this. By the end of this podcast, I think that we'll all find ourselves on the same page.
It's going to be about the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Sorry, Kozi, are we live?
Yes, we are.
In fact.
All right, wonderful. So I will
I guess I should
get promos. I only did it because I knew we were playing games beforehand.
Perfect. Oh, God.
Yeah, you look very sophisticated. What
the glasses on the end of your nose, it's like Grandpa Alex. Yeah.
Hey, what? Speak up.
Young whippersnappers.
You're telling me you play as a second character?
What? Back in my day, we only had one controller.
Forgot to mute the Twitch.
I cannot
tab.
confirm or deny anything.
Where else
Yeah.
am I going with this promo?
I think
promo,
your mom is in
promo
the chat,
everywhere.
Mitch.
Fire
Until
escapes.
the
My mom,
Spoilercast.
I think your mom was in the chat.
Hi, Mom. I love you. Yeah, she is.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to say until the Spoilercast proper starts, everything that we're saying right here is just rumors and speculation. There's not a lick of truth that has escaped our mouths.
Except for that thing Alex said.
What? Oh, no, I'll tell you about this after we're done recording. But I have this idea for a video that I was talking to Mitch about today.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gonna be good.
Which, yeah, I want to do it closer to November, but like it's gonna be real good.
So now you know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be good. I think that's it.
It
So,
involves alcohol and Halo.
Oh, hell
well,
yeah.
your two favorite things.
I'm a clean boy. Do not partake.
Take a shot every time Nathan has a bad take about Halo.
I don't want to
drunk recap.
Yeah, I want to do a try to explain the lore of the 5 games and how it's gonna all connect to Halo Infinite.
Has to explain it to Nathan, who has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, someone's gonna have to do like an interview style thing for me where they like direct me a little bit.
Okay, something I want you to look up is the Waypoint podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go far enough back, I think at some point last year, they did a special series of podcasts called Lore Reasons for Kingdom Hearts.
Oh,
Yes.
I want you to listen to that, Alex, because what they did is they didn't play the game; they just watched all the cutscenes and then freaked out about the lore.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's something special.
Who hosted the podcast?
Waypoint Radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean? Who hosted it? Like,
I mean, like what people were on the episode of Waypoint Explains Kingdom Hearts?
Austin Walker, Natalie Watson,
Okay.
Rob
Okay.
Zachney, Patrick Klepek.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mom is very surprised that we are podcasting on a Sunday night at 9:00, and the reason we're doing that is we are doing a spoiler cast for a video game that came out a few weeks ago called The Last of Us Part 2.
So,
We'll
Mitch's
get
mom,
into
make
it
sure
in-
you played it before you tune in.
Oh yeah, because you want to hear me talk about all these gruesome details live.
Oh yeah.
All right, everybody, are we ready to start?
I'm ready whenever
right.
y'all are.
Yep.
All right.
I've started my recording.
I have as well.
21, 10, 30.
All right, recording.
Cool.
Cool.
Yep. All right.
If the Lord was to give me a second chance, I'd do it all over again. Welcome to Press YYZ, The Last of Us Part 2 spoiler cast. My name is Alex Ballin, and with me is a amazing cast of gray heroes. AJ Fraser,
How's it going?
going well. Mitch George
Haircut.
and Alexander Kozina.
Unfortunately, Nathan left us, so now it's just The Last of Us.
See you later, guys. This has been the last episode ever. Bye.
All right. Well, I mean, you know, we still got a whole game to talk about. And so, before we start to talk about The Last of Us Part 2, which was released on June 19th, I want to just quickly go through our experiences with the first game and sort of where our anticipation was for Part 2. I'll start with you, AJ. What was your experience with the first Last of Us?
So I played The Last of Us originally back when it first came out on the PS3 and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then, like, what was it? Half a year later, 6 to 9 months later is when Left Behind came out. I went ahead and plugged my PS3 back in because the PS4 was out by that point, and played through Left Behind. I purchased the Last of Us Remastered. Played a little bit of the multiplayer. Played a small bit of the way through the story again, like after that came out, and then didn't really pick it up again until about a week before The Last of Us 2 came out this year. And played through it all then and thoroughly enjoyed it again. Felt refreshed and all caught up.
Perfect. Mitch, what has been your experience with the Last of Us franchise?
Last of Us is the game that murdered my PlayStation 3.
Oh no.
The
Did it
Last
turn
of
it
Us.
into a clicker?
No, The Last of Us. I could probably play 30-minute sessions until it would inevitably yellow light my PS3. And for those who don't know, that means the thing's getting hot, the thing got super loud, and then the thing stopped playing games for a while.
What version of the PlayStation 3 did you have?
I have and still have, because it still works. It just, after 30 minutes of The Last of Us, it gives up.
So it just doesn't work. So it only just doesn't work for The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. That was the swan song of the PlayStation 3.
Last of Us causes it to get too warm, so it shuts itself off.
Huh.
I have one of the last backwards compatible PS3 FATs.
Okay, yeah.
So it was the last bundle they came out with MotorStorm, I believe it was, the 80 gig PS3. Still works fine. It's sitting down in storage, so it probably doesn't work fine anymore, but at the time it did. So it killed my PS3, so I never finished it when it first launched, even though I was super, super hyped for it. I did end up getting the remaster on the PS4, played through it and the Left Behind DLC there. Watched a few full streams of it actually. Shout out to Private Jeebus in our Twitch chat, who did a full stream of it, and I hopped in there for a bit and kind of got caught up that way before jumping feet first right into The Last of Us Part 2.
Perfect. Kozi, what has been your experience with The Last of Us?
So the original The Last of Us I did not play when it first came out. For whatever reason, the subject matter of the first game in the series didn't really appeal to me. And so I only ended up playing it when it came to the PlayStation 4 and only towards the end of 2014. And largely because I felt that I needed to play it so that I could be part of the conversation. And I enjoyed it decently there. I came out being very appreciative of what Naughty Dog had created, but I wouldn't say that I absolutely loved it. I would say that it was only until a couple of weeks ago that I would actually say that I came to really kind of love it. Basically, in the lead up to The Last of Us Part 2's release, Gamers, the YouTube channel I write for, decided to do a documentary on the history of the first game called The History of The Last of Us. And for the purpose of that documentary, Eiler, who edits our videos together, was like, hey, Alex, do you want to record footage of the PlayStation 3 version of The Last of Us? Because it's easier for me to record footage of console games. And I said, sure. So I played through the entirety of the game again on the PlayStation 3, which I feel is kind of backwards from most people's experience with that game. I feel like most people, they either played it on the PlayStation 3 first, and then they played it on the PlayStation 4, or they just played the PlayStation 4 version. You don't hear about many people saying, oh, I played the PlayStation 4 version first, and then I went back to the PlayStation 3. Despite the, lesser graphics and whatnot, I honestly came to really, really like the game, I would say, the second time around. Still not my favorite game of all time, but I really think that Naughty Dog created something special with that experience. And I also played the Left Behind DLC around the same time that I originally played the first game back in 2014. And then I also played it again for the Making of the Gamers documentary.
Right. Okay, so very quickly, I will go through my own little history. So I, as a lot of people who might listen to this podcast know, that I've been primarily an Xbox gamer for the first two for the first two generations of, so the Xbox and then the Xbox 360. For some reason, I think it was Uncharted 3. I really wanted to get a PlayStation 3. And so I got it for Christmas in 2011. And it basically sat dormant except for Uncharted. And from there, it was like, oh, this Naughty Dog, because I was aware of at least some developers, and Naughty Dog was kind of one of those on my radar. And so it's like, oh, Naughty Dog's releasing a new game. It's not Uncharted, though. And so I did pick up The Last of Us on release with the PS3, and it was the only, besides the Uncharted trilogy, it was the only other game I played on my PS3. And I fell in love with that franchise, or like I fell in love with those characters. I thought it was such an amazing story being told. It was the plot of the game was very kind of generic, but the story of the characters was what, you know, everyone got invested in, and that's why people, I think, fell in love with that franchise. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago where I got my PS4 Pro, and I then finally got to replay through the game. And so I replayed through it once 2 years ago, and kind of refell in love with it because it had been over 6 years since I had played it. And then just before Last of Us Part 2 had released, I played it once more, like within 2 days. I did it in like 2 sittings. But I also followed your advice, AJ, because I had never played Left Behind. And you talked about how I didn't know that Left Behind actually had like the cut-ins with Ellie trying to get the first aid kit for Joel. And so I actually played through Left Behind like that, where I like stopped right at winter and then started playing that and then played through the rest of the game. And it was a really enjoyable way to experience that for the first time. And I'm really glad that you kind of mentioned that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate you very much.
Aw, thanks.
So I think the way that we're going to kind of do this spoiler cast is, instead of just kind of like talking kind of generally about the game and maybe getting into some like details about it and like going into like story details that are kind of sporadic all over, we're going to kind of do like a bit of a recap where we kind of recap some of like the bigger story moments of the game, and then kind of talk through each sort of section of the game until we sort of reach the end. So to start it off, when The Last of Us Part 2, I really want to just first mention, because this is something I think is super underappreciated in Naughty Dog games, or it's not underappreciated, but I just want to give praise to, are the title screens. I guess in this game there is no title, but just like the boat on the dock is just super beautiful. I really loved it a lot. Super ominous.
But at the end as well.
Yeah, the way that it changes by the end of the story. So to kick off this story of The Last of Us Part 2, is Joel sitting, he's explaining basically the events of the very end of the game, of the first game, to Tommy, his brother, and he's got a guitar, and he's cleaning it up for Ellie to bring it to Jackson. I really wanted to...
I just want to say, by the way, the reason why our friend Alex here is doing the overview of the plot of The Last of Us Part 2 is so you already played through the game twice and platinumed it, correct?
Yes.
So I am very impressed.
Most qualified. Yeah, I very much
qualified.
Thanks, man. I very much got consumed by this game when it came out, and when I saw that the trophy list was very attainable as well, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna just do it. And I don't regret doing that, even though the only thing I regret about it is that after I finished it, it's just like, now it's just I have no real reason to play it again for a little while. And so now it's just going to be this thing that kind of obsessively takes over my thoughts. But to sort of start, Joel's bringing the guitar to Ellie, and we have the first guitar mini game. And you can kind of tell that there's a bit of a strain on their relationship because of Joel lying to Ellie about what happened. And even though she doesn't know what happened, she knows that something is wrong. So what did you guys think of like this intro? Because the intro to the game is actually relatively long cutscene where there's very little interactivity besides riding the horse and the guitar minigame, which then the guitar minigame comes up later. But what did you guys think of how this intro for Part 2 is pretty different from the first game?
I thought it was actually quite beautiful in a way. It had that very awkward, like, daughter doesn't know how to interact with her adoptive father and vice versa. And they really nailed the like emotions and everything. Like, Naughty Dog's always been great with not only storytelling but like they're currently trying to lead the charge. It appears in terms of like facial animations and whatnot. They're doing a fantastic job in that regard, and the guitar part threw me for a bit of a loop. I didn't expect. It wasn't until like I started watching videos after I finished the game that I realized, oh no, like the different sections of the touch pad are mapped to the different strings that you can play, right? And then you go watch people playing like other like real songs on YouTube just acoustically with Ellie's guitar in game. It's actually super cool, super amazing, in my opinion.
It's
I like. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, what's kind of surprising is that Naughty Dog actually found a pretty decent use of the touchpad this late into the PlayStation 4's life cycle. Like, you know, you saw a lot of games at the very beginning of the PlayStation 4 make creative-ish uses of it, like infamous last light or first light or whatever.
Son, yeah.
Second Son had the spray painting stuff, for example, and then it kind of receded, and so it was a nice little touch to have the PlayStation 4's touchpad used in a pretty decently creative way right here.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite use of the touchpad for sure.
I mean,
The only thing I'd add to that is Naughty Dog really likes putting things like this in a lot of their games where they're these small touches not everyone's going to discover, whether it's well hidden collectibles, which we'll touch on, or something like this where you can do the guitar sections just hitting the X button. You don't have to use the touchpad, and unless you're using the touchpad for that, you're gonna get a different experience with the touchpad versus just using the buttons. So it's really cool the amount of detail and effort that goes into implementing some of these things that some people might not even see is kind of incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So, if Mitch, you didn't really give your sort of thoughts about the intro. Do you have just any sort of final words about it?
Yeah, I love the relationship between Joel and Tommy that's presented in the intro. The only person Joel has ever told about Boston is his brother, and I really appreciated. I mean, other than Ellie figuring it out later in the game, which we'll get to, but I appreciate
Utah. Was it Utah?
It was.
Oh no, sorry, Salt Lake. Yeah, Salt Lake City.
Yeah, Salt Lake. Yeah.
Yeah, the incident at the hospital. Like Tommy is the only person that Joel has ever told what happened, and just the growth we get between the two of them through this game, and you start to really understand why Tommy takes the actions he does later in the game because they build the relationship so well in a short amount of time at the beginning of this game, carrying over, of course, what happened in the first game. But I really appreciate their relationship throughout the entire experience.
Yeah.
I will say, and this is not like specifically a criticism of The Last of Us Part 2, this is just sort of like a thing in general in games. It is always weird when you see a flashback of a thing that you did in a previous game, like specifically a flashback of something that was purely just gameplay and not just another flashback.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, my distinctive memories of St. Mary's Hospital in Utah are very distinctive, and to kind of see it all laid out cinematic like in the intro, there is like that little bit of dissonance, but like otherwise I agree. The intro of this game is great. It hasn't gotten too bad just yet.
Yeah, no, like the difference between I actually shot that doctor in the head versus what the cutscene in The Last of Us 2 shows, you know, yeah.
You ran into him 5 times. You sort of like went against a wall a little bit.
Yeah,
then you tried hitting him and he dodged.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get back to that surgeon in a little bit. But continuing on, we jump forward by 4 years to Jackson, and now Ellie is a full-grown adult. She is no longer 14, and she's waking up because she has to go on patrol. Jesse, who is one of the leaders of the patrols, is trying to get her up because apparently she slept in because of a fight that happened that at this point it was kind of weird that it's like we're going to talk about the structure and pacing of this game, but like we had people who had watched the E3 stuff, like E3 from 2018 will know like what is happening, but it was really weird, like how late into the game that cutscene actually shows up.
Yeah, I thought they were straight up not going to show the cutscene at all. I thought that was just going to be an E3 thing.
Yeah, like when they like basically just referenced it for so long that I was thinking like, yeah, like I guess you're just supposed to kind of know from the E3 stuff that like, oh,
There-
this
I
is
mean, if that was the case, there's enough context in there that you can kind of piece together what happened. Like
yeah.
as you go through this opening sequence, but
Yeah. But
you know.
regardless, this is the opportunity where you get to kind of look at Jackson. You get to see it's like, oh, people like there are places where people are starting to live normally again, like as normal as you can get in the fungus apocalypse that The Last of Us takes place in. But like Jackson is relatively like it looks like they have shops, they have like a whole system like of currency, it seems like, of like you get to trade stuff, and yeah, it's relatively peaceful. You also get your first introduction to some of the combat mechanics, at least like with the snowball fight, um, and then from there you and this new character Dina, who you had who they reference that you've had the kiss with, you guys go on patrol, and from there we get introduced to another new character who we don't know who she is yet. We I don't remember exactly how long it is until we learn her name, but we see this new group of people, and her and one other person go out and they find Jackson, and they specifically say that that's where he is. And so there's a lot of sort of foreshadowing of like, oh, they're looking for someone.
Yeah.
You could kind of guess who that's probably going to be. At this point in the
I
game,
know I did, at least at that point. I don't know
yeah,
about the rest of y'all.
yeah, my suspicions were very clear at that point, but
I will say about that one sequence, I thought, okay, we're talking around it, but it's Abby and Owen.
yes,
And
Talk around things at this point. It's a spoiler cast.
yeah,
I
I
know.
thought, I absolutely thought that Owen, in that moment, I'm not sure why, I thought Owen was going to be the top bad guy, and
Huh.
he was like calling Abby out of the cabin so he could go like push her off a cliff or something like that. Like
What?
he creeped me the fuck out, and I didn't like. There's something because he was acting so weird because due to the secret he was holding regarding Mel that he revealed to Abby shortly thereafter. I was getting weird vibes off him. He made me uncomfortable.
I had a sense when we got to that scene that, oh, they're putting us in the shoes of the antagonist here to try to do some weird things around subverting our expectations when they actually do, and a little bit end up running into Joel and Tommy, where I'm just like, oh, I'm getting a bad vibe from the entire group, not anyone specifically, but figuring that whoever we're playing as is going to end up being the big bad in this game.
I have something to reveal, but I'll wait a little bit more into the plot to reveal it.
Okay, so continuing forward, we're switching sort of back and forth between Ellie and Abby at this point.
It's like the
because-
Master Chief versus the Arbiter.
A little bit, but yeah, we're switching.
You had to bring Halo into it. God
It
damn
wasn't me.
It's so
It wasn't
spoilercast.
me. It wasn't even me.
I mean, wouldn't a more appropriate comparison be Master Chief and John Locke, or whatever the
That's what I
hell
was
that
gonna
guy's name was?
No,
It
because we
honestly
don't
is the same
we don't reference that game. Continuing on, we're switching back and forth between Abby and Ellie. Ellie and Dina are going on patrol. They reach a outpost, or they have to hide from the storm that has approached, and they find a weed den from
Gene, man.
yeah
A weed
from one
den.
Grow
From
up.
what-
Gene's the homie.
yeah from one of the people who Tommy used to run with during the Firefly days, and he passed away, and he also had a shitload of dead weed, but he also had some good weed. He also had some good weed, and they decide to smoke up and also have some intimate time. And let me just tell you, I gotta give Naughty Dog props, because when two video game characters kiss, they look like G.I. Joes being rubbed together. These characters did not look like that.
Yeah.
I can't think of many like animated video game kisses that don't look horrendous. Uncharted maybe, like Uncharted 4 maybe, but besides that, like I can't really think of very many others. And so Naughty Dog's facial animations continue to just impress.
it was all
something
the
else here. I'm going to bring something else up right here because I think it fits relatively well. Later in the game, Ellie takes her shirt off so Dina can help her with some, wound she's succumbed to in combat or whatever. I have never seen a video game character take off their shirt, and I've never seen a video game character look like a normal ass human being taking off a shirt. Like
There
whatever
was,
Naughty Dog has done with their animations is just it's amazing. It's incredible.
You saw characters take off shirts before in Uncharted 4. That was the first game where they showed off how impressively they could take off shirts, and then they applied that technology to this game.
Yeah, it stood out a lot more here than I remember it from Uncharted 4. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I don't even remember what the scene was. But continuing, so Abby has abandoned Owen at this point because Owen is kind of getting freaked out by the size of Jackson. And so Abby's like, fuck it, I'll do it myself. Whatever she's going for at this point.
We'll do it live.
Yeah, it's like I'm kind of, the reason why I'm stepping around this in the explaining of this is because like I want to sort of capture what the headspace was as I was going through the game and playing it, because at this point we didn't know who she was, we didn't know exactly what she was looking for. We could assume, but we didn't know specifically, and so I'm trying to sort of recapture that headspace. So Abby's kind of going through and she's starting to get overwhelmed with infected. They're just kind of everywhere in the mountains. Apparently the cold doesn't exactly kill them, it makes them like, but she's getting overwhelmed. She's getting caught between a fence, and then somebody puts a bullet in between an infected that's on top of her, and it turns out that it's Joel. Joel is alive and well.
Nice
and
old friendly Joel. The community. Yep, he's a good guy.
People really like him in the community. There's a lot of flowers in the subsequent scene that we're going to get to.
Yeah, people apparently really like him on Twitter as well. But I don't know.
Oh yeah. Twitter.
Anyway,
okay, but continuing on, Abby, Joel, and Tommy are now running because they are being overwhelmed, and they reach the ski resort. They lock it in, and they're about to be overwhelmed when Abby suggests go over to this place. I can't remember exactly where it is. It's like a mansion.
Yeah,
it's like my
mansion, lodge.
Yeah, it's like a lodge. My friends are located there. We can go there and hold up. And Joel and Tommy in the moment are like, yeah, that could work, because they don't really have a lot of options because they're being overwhelmed.
They're familiar enough with the area to know that place is relatively secure.
Yeah, and at this point, it's like Joel has, saved Abby. And so it's like, at this point, they don't have a lot of options. So they're kind of like, and they know that they can't get back to Jackson because their horses are going to die because of the storm. The reason I'm going so much into this is because this is one of the... I don't want to talk about this part about it too much, about the whole controversies about the game, but one of the biggest things that I've seen is people being like, Joel would never have trusted Abby during that part. But it's like, well, their backs were literally against the wall because they're about to be overwhelmed by infected.
So, like, I don't want to talk too much about, like, the water cooler talk on Twitter, but is that something people are really, complaining about?
I've heard that being complained a whole lot. And
really? All right.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too, we're at a point where Joel has been in Jackson for years. He's kind of desensitized. Like, he's not the same Joel we had at the hospital. Point blank.
He's grown.
He's had years to live with that guilt and to grow as a human being, and probably has become more trusting, and probably a little to his detriment, as we'll see in a minute.
And also, that's part of
human beings.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the thing about Joe also is, he's just looking for any young, possibly pre-teenage daughter that he can find his hands on. So he sees someone like Abby, and he's like, you're a little bit old, but if you can become another one of my daughters, that's perfectly fine by me.
No.
Okay, moving on. I was gonna say that was the whole reason why him and Tommy were up there, was to help out any people who are passing through. That's part of their job, and also to clear out infected. Moving on,
they're trying to grow Jackson, right? And that's part of bringing people into the community.
Yeah. So moving on, Tommy, Joel, and Abby make it to the lodge. They manage to clear out the infected. At this point, we switch back to Ellie and Dina. Jesse finds them because Joel and Tommy haven't reported, and they're like, we don't know where they are. And so the three of them split up to try and find Joel and Tommy. And so then switching back to Joel, Tommy, and Abby. I'm trying to do this in the way the game presents it, okay?
Do it however you want. If you want to speed things up, go for it.
I'll try, but this next part's really important. It's kind of really important.
Yeah.
So Joel, Tommy, and Abby get to the lodge, and they start cleaning out the horses, and they're like, hey, we should you guys should come back to Jackson. Like, you guys are really cool. This is Tommy, or I'm Tommy. That's my brother Joel. And then it's so like
Everybody just turns and looks at him.
Literally, it was such a eerie moment of everybody stares at Joel, and then I love the line, "You're acting like you've heard of us or something," and then
Acting
Abby,
like you heard of me or something.
yeah, and then Abby with a shotgun says it's because they have, and takes out his kneecaps, and this is the point where we find out what their true motives were, and from there, I just want to, like, this whole scene of Joel being killed by Abby, it genuinely made me feel super uncomfortable through the entire thing. It was, and I know that it was very effective. Yes, that was the point as well, is because you were supposed to be in the same headspace as Ellie when she happens upon it and then sees Abby kill Joel. And so I want to talk about this scene, because this scene is super important, because it basically kicks off the entire plot of the game. So what did you guys think of the scene?
Okay, so I said earlier on that I would have something to reveal. Here we go. This is twist number 1 of the evening. I'd actually spoiled myself to all the pre-release spoilers of The Last of Us Part 2, and I knew that this was going to happen.
Okay.
And I do want to say... So I do realize I need to kind of explain myself here a little bit. The thing is that in the lead up to The Last of Us Part 2's release, I did not think I was going to play The Last of Us Part 2 at launch. In the same way that I just wasn't really into The Last of Us Part 1 when it first came out, I really wasn't super looking forward to The Last of Us Part 2. I knew that I would get to it at some point because, again, like with the first game, I knew that I would have to be part of the conversation at some point. But I did not feel particularly obliged to pick it up right away. It was only when our internal discussions of having a spoiler cast came up that I realized I should probably play this as soon as possible. But by that point, I had already spoiled myself. So I knew that this moment was going to happen. And I have to say, I really appreciate, one, as Alex Palin said, how effective they were at making this scene feel tense and uncomfortable. I think it is a masterfully done scene. And two, despite having spoiled myself to the fact that it was going to happen, I did not expect it to happen this early on. And I really do want to give Naughty Dog props for that, because if the entire game had been you, well, not the entire game, but like if a good half of the game had been you following Joel around, or Joel following you around, and you've been like, I know this guy's going to die, I know this guy's going to die, I know he's going to get golf clubbed in the head, it would have been such a stressful and frustrating experience. And so them getting it out of the way this early on, I'm like, cool, this is literally like the best outcome for me spoiling myself to what happened.
The only quote unquote spoilers or anything that I saw were the actual trailers themselves. I managed to avoid all of the leaks and stuff like that. And I will say the scene with Ellie screaming "No, please don't" on the as they hold her down as she watches. Was actually in that particular moment was in one of the trailers. And we had no idea who it was going to be, right? Yeah. But it wasn't, for me, it wasn't until I saw that look on her face there that I was like, oh God, they're going to do it right here, and it's going to be Joel. And yeah, it hurt.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Mitch.
I was just going to say, going into this game, I had seen all of one trailer. The only trailer I'd seen of The Last of Us Part 2 was the E3 2018 trailer. The weird E3 where they like blended different rooms and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I knew I was sold. I knew I was going to play this game. At that point, I went, total media blackout. I got to the point when I heard that there were spoilers of putting all of the block terms into Twitter and that whole jam. So like I said earlier, I got to this scene already expecting that Abby was going to be the big bad of the entire game because of Naughty Dog putting us in her shoes earlier with the jumping back and forth between her and Ellie. And the scene 100% confirmed my expectations with that, at least at the time. And I just like even just looking back at comparing this to the deed that Joel did in the first game, it's like she went above and beyond anything we've seen anyone do to another human being in this game. It was cruel, it was violent, it was brutal because you knew Ellie needed a real reason to do what she does in the rest of the game, and I appreciated it, even though, like you guys were saying, it is such an uncomfortable moment.
Yeah, the main theme that they were talking about was this game is about revenge. It's about revenge, and so they wanted to make the player and the main character be on the same page of like, no, I'm gonna fucking kill that bitch. And I think they succeeded relatively well. The only thing, like, you guys are all absolutely right. The only thing I'm going to sort of add on to this is I just want to give a huge praise to the soundtrack. Every time that there's one of the, especially during that moment in particular, I've watched that cutscene twice now because I'm playing it through both times, and the looming just dread. I don't know how to exactly describe the soundtrack in that moment, but it puts you on edge. It really does, like, it makes the back of your, like, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and you're just kind of tense through the whole thing. I was like hardly breathing through it because it was just, and I think so much of that came from just the entire sound design of that scene. And so I think it was just expertly well done for what they were achieving or what they were aiming for. From there, Ellie says, "I'm going to fucking kill you," and they knock her out. And both Tommy and her are knocked out, and Dina and Jesse find them. They bring them back to Jackson, and we skip forward a little bit to Joel's funeral. Or Joel's gravestone. Go ahead.
Quick second. You missed an important detail, which is this is the first scene in the game where Tommy is seemingly killed, but somehow manages to come back to life in the next scene.
He only got his face bashed in. I didn't think he was dead there.
Did I at that point?
Yeah, like I knew he wasn't dead. Like, if at this point they had already established that it's like, if they're gonna kill someone, they're gonna fucking kill someone. Like, you're gonna kind of know.
Well,
it does get a little bit vague later, but
it's not like a huge issue with me. It's just a funny aspect of the game.
Fair enough. Okay. So continuing on, we see Joel's gravestone. Ellie is standing by it, and her and Dina go to Joel's house, and we get to see how Joel has been kind of living through these past 4 years. He makes wooden sculptures. He's got a shitload of guitars. Like, it looks like he's living a really nice life. He's got pictures that Ellie has drawn for him, like, just framed, and it looks like he's living like a pretty nice life by himself.
That moment when she grabs his jacket out of the closet and just holds it, you want to talk about something killing you? That's just like, oh man.
Yeah. And so Ellie needs to get something from Joel's room. She gets his watch and his gun, which I believe it is the same gun that he had back in Texas, back at the beginning of the first game. And so she's taking that because she is going to go after them. We do know that, or there was a scene where Tommy goes to talk to, this is important, Tommy goes to talk to Ellie, and be like, "Are you okay? Please don't go after them. We don't know how armed they are, how many people they have." And he's like, "Give me a day to talk to Maria about doing this." And we find out that Tommy has actually left. He's gone to go do it by himself, and trying to get Maria to stop Ellie from doing it, because he knows what this path will involve, and he doesn't want Ellie to be a part of it. Though Maria and Ellie both say fuck that, and they go after him. Both Ellie and Dina get a horse, and they get to go after them. And starting
to me, this isn't Maria letting. It's not Maria letting her go. It's Maria's reluctant to let her go. Like, she doesn't want her to go either, but she knows that the only way to get Tommy back alive is if he has backup.
See,
she's not going to be able to stop Ellie anyway.
That's what I took it as.
She'd rather see her go out with, some morsel of resources.
That's how I saw it, is like, she knows she's not gonna, like, Ellie is going to go one way or another, and so it's like, might as well, like, give her the best case scenario. I don't even know if it's as much like, yes, she does say the line of "please bring my idiot husband back," but I don't know if that was as much of a, like, it probably was, but I feel like it was more just a, you're gonna go, like,
yeah.
So from there we get to Seattle day one. We're gonna hear that a couple of times. And from here, this is they get to the gate of the Seattle quarantine zone, and they have to get in. Ellie and Dina figure out how to get in, and here we get the open world section of the game.
Uncharted, Lost Legacy. This is what that was created for to test. You can see the influence that had on it.
There was a lot of sort of sharing back and forth with this. There's not too much story going on in this section. It's more they just have to find gas to open up a gate. But I thought that this was like a really interesting gameplay section that I wanted to talk about.
Every time it happens, I'm surprised that they released an entire game based around this this real small open world like mechanic, I'll call it. And this is the only spot that they chose to use it in the game.
I was fully expecting a second open world section like this at some point.
I mean, they did.
Sorry, go ahead, Kozi.
You sure you don't want to go ahead?
I'm good.
All right. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, they did a very similar thing in Uncharted 4, right? Where that game had the Madagascar level, which is, I would say, pretty similar-ish
to this one. It was pretty linear, though, compared to Lost Legacy and Last of Us Part 2.
Still, like, I feel like the point still stands. Like, both games are kind of punctuated by this one level that is somewhat non-linear, and then they kind of just go back to linearity, which, not to say that one type of gameplay is superior to the other, but it would have been cool to have another section like this.
Yeah. I really like this section for, like, a lot of the locations you get to go to. When you get to go to the bank and you get the story of the bank robbers who are gonna rob the bank on Outbreak Day. Like, I just thought that was some really great environmental storytelling. Plus, that's where you get the shotgun. Like, there's some really cool stuff that's happening.
Drake's ring, right?
Yeah, and Drake's ring. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can confirm Drake did not survive Outbreak Day.
That's not necessarily true.
Did he?
His ring was found in a safety deposit box. It just doesn't mean it might mean that it ended up there at some point.
I was going to say, like, the last time that we saw Drake's ring, didn't it fall to the bottom of the Sea of Sand in Uncharted 3?
You're right. Yes. Okay.
So
Drake
somebody
could be
else
still
found it. Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so if we don't have much more to say here, we can continue sort of moving on. Ellie and Dina are looking for Tommy. They get to the hotel on the other side of that gate, and they find a body of one of the people who was by Jackson, and we see the same technique that Joel did in the winter section of the first game of the you tell me where this is, and if he tells me a different thing, then you're in trouble. And we see that Tommy has implemented that strategy. Clearly, they both came up with it together. It adds a little bit of character to sort of what Joel and Tommy were sort of doing before the events of the first game. And so now they've got a little bit of a lead on where Tommy's going. They're riding, and then the horse blows up. That part was genuinely. I don't get jump scared very often, but that
First
really.
one for sure.
That was a very, like, you expect with The Last of Us the jump scares to be clickers or some shit, but no, it's just a trap set up to blow up a horse jumping over a barrier.
Or like in general, you expect like a really climactic event to happen the moment a cutscene starts, and so I thought that it was cool how they masked that something climactic was about to happen in that regard.
Mm-hmm. I thought I thought the horse was going to die in like this, like, because I had a feeling the horse was not going to be through the whole game, but just the way that they did it was so quick, brutal, and really fit the MO of the rest of the game. So from there, Ellie gets captured, and we see another person who was in Jackson. I can't remember his name. I don't remember most of their names besides like the important ones. No,
Jesse. Early for Jesse.
Was it Jordan? It's one of them. It starts with a J, I think. Regardless, he's like, holy shit, you came after us. Why'd you do that? Like, he's like kind of intimidating, or like he's talking to her. And from there, Dina actually saves Ellie by standing on a glass panel and getting shot at and having the glass fall from underneath, and she falls. But then Ellie can break free and kill him. And from there, they have to escape. I think they're in the TV station. No, they're not in the TV station yet.
They're going to the TV station.
Yes. So they know where their next lead is because Ellie finds a thing. they go through. There's a extended combat section, and from there they
Yeah,
finally.
there is.
Yeah, there's an extended combat section, and then there's then I believe they go. I think they go underground from there, and then they get to underground's later. So I won't go through all of the combat sections because there's a lot in this game because this game is very long. But they reach the TV station and they find people who are hanging. They find these like fucked up executions going on, and the WLF also finds them. From there, they have to escape the TV station. They don't know what's going on, and from there they go underground to try to escape, and we get a prolonged infected fight. And from there we get to the movie theater, which is kind of the hub because Dina is not feeling well. She's kind of she's starting to slow them both down.
You kind of saw in the open world section, like there was a spot like under a bridge where like she reacted adversely to some dead bodies that she hasn't really done before. So
yeah, she's like she gets super nauseous and throws up, and so we know that there's something wrong with Dina. Also from there, Dina also learns that Ellie is immune from there because Ellie's mask breaks. So that's an important detail to their like relationship that they find out. And so from there they get to the movie theater. Dina reveals that Ellie that she is probably pregnant. And from there, that's Ellie like turns on the power in the movie theater. And from there, that's kind of the end of day one. And what are our thoughts at this point in the game so far before we continue into day two?
It's a real long day, I'll say that much.
Yeah, this day kind of felt like
for the record, I did quite enjoy day one a bit. My next twist of this episode is coming up on day two. I'm sorry, guys. But boy. Yeah, overall, this episode, this day had a lot going on in it. A lot of different gameplay segments, a lot of puzzles to solve, a lot of enemies to kill. Overall, though, enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love the introduction of the like rope mechanics with the cords and everything, and playing around with the physics of that was fun. And I like a lot of the personalization or like the environmental storytelling we get throughout this day, and it just sets up a great game. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed discovering everything around this area. You get your first like proper real taste of combat in it, and I mentioned on the main podcast, kind of my thoughts on that in general. I think I've softened up on those prior thoughts a little bit, but I still maintain that I don't think my playthrough was it. I don't think throughout the entire playthrough I was presented with some of the opportunities other people were describing when it came to survivability. I typically felt like I had to shoot my way through everything by the end of it.
Right. Very quickly, I didn't bring it up exactly, but I really the music store has one of the greatest moments I think in this entire franchise.
Take on Me.
And the Take on Me section, which I really think is
and
like one of the.
It's apparently completely missable too. You can miss that moment, so don't miss that moment.
Yeah, it really is worth doing everything you can in the open world, because I think Ellie even makes a remark when you kind of complete everything. It's like, it looks like we've been to everywhere that we can. So when you've sort of found everything.
Mm-hmm. There have been more than a few like articles and tweets and whatnots on social media of people being like, hey, I bought a guitar because of the main characters of The Last of Us Part 2, including friend of the show, Tay Nixter. And I think that's really impressive. And I think that probably might not have happened were it not for this sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really helped sell the appeal of the guitars.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so continuing forward to day 2, I'm going to try to do this a little bit faster. Day 2, Ellie is going out to look for Tommy. People have been fucking with the WLF. and they find she's going through. She finds a whole lot of them. She starts running away from them. At a certain point, there's a bunch of prolonged combat encounters. You get to really practice the stealth, and then from there, she gets grabbed by someone as she's trying to run away, and it turns out that it's Jesse. Where this is where one of those fake outs happened that they did with one of the trailers, where we thought that this was going to be Joel at a point, and it turns out that they literally changed the character model for the trailer, which I thought was I like that Naughty Dog did that. I like that it kind of subverted my expectations about what was going to happen, because I usually use trailers a lot to sort of figure out what's going to be like, oh, well, this hasn't happened yet, so then I know sort of how, like, what's still to come. I really like that Naughty Dog did that. It put me on my toes. So from there, there's a big chase between Jesse and Ellie. Like, they have to get away. They go into the river. From there, they go back to the movie theater, and they find out Dina has been listening to the radio frequencies, and they found out that Nora is in the hospital. And so from there, Jesse is too injured to go with Ellie, so Ellie decides to go on her own to the hospital. And the hospital, when she finally, if there's ever a point where you guys want to interject about something that's happened, please feel free. But I'm just going to kind of continue until you guys kind of stop me.
I like this. I want to say I like this format so far, where like you go through an arc of the game and then we kind of offer our thoughts retroactively on it.
So I'll probably go to the end of day 2 and then we can continue from there. So Ellie has to go to the hospital. There's some infected encounters. There's some WLF encounters. She finally reaches the hospital. She's sneaking around, and then she finds Nora, and she holds up Nora, and she's like, and she's trying to find Abby. She's specifically interrogating her about Abby, because that's who the final target is after all. And so from there, Nora finds a way to escape. First, she says, I can still hear his screams. He screamed like a little bitch. So you're just like in reference to Joel. So you kind of are like, all right, I want to fucking kill this. I want to kill this person now. And so you chase her through. She falls, or there's a point where you have to hold her up, and you both fall into a spore-infected part of the hospital. And Nora continues to run. Ellie finally catches up to her and has Nora basically against the wall. Nora is dying because she has ingested a shitload of spores. And finally, Ellie is like, you will tell me where Abby is because I can make this quick for you. And Nora's like, I'm dying anyway. You can't get me to talk. And Ellie's like, are you sure about that? And so from there, you get the option to press X to beat Nora with the pipe. And from there, it cuts. And we can only assume what happens next as Ellie returns to the movie theater. Her hands are literally shaking. We can assume that she has done really terrible things to Nora, and and she's then talking to Dina. This is where the shirt coming off that you had mentioned earlier, Mitch, happens, just showing off their amazing cloth physics. And from there, that's kind of the end of day 2.
So I want to start off by doubling back to the whole change around Joel's character model thing that we touched on earlier. I don't have an issue with this specific instance of it. I thought that it was fine because Naughty Dog wanted to, keep the reveal of Joel's death a secret, and I think that's okay in this instance. My issue with this is it's kind of like the discussion that we had on Press YYZ proper a short while ago of, one company will go and raise the prices of their games for legitimate reasons, and then maybe we might see other companies raising the price of their games for unfair reasons. Like, you are slowly seeing this trend in Hollywood and now in video games of companies being not super genuine in their trailers of what's going to happen in their games or movies. The most notable example in movies being like the Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame trailers. And it's like, I think in both these instances, it was fine. It was justified. There's just a small part of me that's concerned that we're going to see this become more and more of a trend, and more companies are going to start using it in ways that aren't totally fair or are kind of more egregious.
In what way do you feel like they could be unfair or egregious? At least looking at the Avengers example, I didn't see a lot of the marketing for Last of Us Part 2, as I mentioned earlier, but I actually appreciate if a company, maybe the game takes another week or 2 to come out, but them taking the time to properly market, marketing for a video game is very difficult, because if you get to a point, let's say 90% of the marketing material for The Last of Us Part 2 did not include Joel. immediately people can be like, oh, Joel's dead in the first 10 minutes of the game. So I actually like the idea of them subverting your expectations by making the changes they did to the media that they put out. And same with the Marvel way of doing things of don't show off shit in your trailers. It's like marketing rule 101. If you like if you don't feel like you need to spoil things in your trailer, don't spoil things in your trailer.
Yeah, the fucking Terminator 2 back in the day when that originally came out got spoiled in the movie theaters. Like,
literally every Terminator movie shows the twist in the trailer.
In the trailer.
Like, yeah.
I'm actually glad we're moving away from that myself. So back to my question, Kozi, like, in what way could you see this as being like malicious in the future? Because I think it's a good thing.
And again, I'm not like actually that concerned. Like, I'm not like quivering in my boots at this future. It's just the one example that comes to mind is, do you remember the theatrical trailer for the third Predator movie?
Predators?
Yeah, that's it. Okay, there's like a brief snippet in that trailer where the back of one of the characters is shown, and like a dozen of the Terminators like lights appear on him, indicating that there's like 100 Terminators in the movie. And then in the actual movie, there's only like 3 Predators basically. And like I can sort of see like a future where video game companies will like put in things in their trailers to kind of make it seem like their movies are going to be more hype or more ambitious than they actually are. That's just like what was sort of coming to mind. Again, don't think that it is actually that like prevalent of a threat that this industry faces. That's just an example that came to mind.
Yeah, it's probably more of like maybe the plot changed a little bit, and they maybe for that first trailer they had planned for it to be a big spectacle, but in actually developing the script or making the movie, they realized it made more sense for it to be a little more toned down. So, I mean, each example is going to be unique in that sense, but ultimately, I think the idea of keeping your like serious plot points as well hidden as you can by making small changes like this can only be seen as a good thing going forward. For me personally, I know not everyone's going to share that opinion.
So Justin15 in the chat just wrote, Kozi, you're crazy. Are you ready for me to go even crazier on this podcast?
Do it.
Oh,
God damn
boy.
it.
All right. So I feel like in the lead up to this spoiler cast, we all kind of knew what each other felt about this game, except I feel like you guys didn't really have that good of a sense of what I felt about this game.
read your
I have an
Twitter.
idea.
All right. So here's the thing. Overall, I think that The Last of Us Part 2 is nothing less than a great game. But
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
I do think that The Last of Us Part 2 is, in a way, its generation's Final Fantasy 13.
You're
I
gonna
don't know
have to
anything about
explain-
Final
yeah,
Fantasy
you're gonna have to
13.
explain that.
Okay.
That's...
All right, everybody, buckle up. It's time for Alexander Kazina. Oh,
I was
no.
gonna say, we're an hour into this podcast, and now Kozi's going to rant for the next 45 minutes. I'm ready. Go.
All right. Let's talk about Final Fantasy 13. The super abridged plot of Final Fantasy 13 is that all the humans of the world are living in this utopic society called Cocoon, which is located above the planet. Cocoon is governed by these godlike beings that provide for humans' every needs, but it's secretly revealed over the course of the game that basically the gods are secretly leading the humans along a string, emphasis on the word string, as part of some sort of evil, diabolical plan to eventually harvest their souls and rule the world or whatever. The thing about Final Fantasy 13 is, and this is something I want to point out, not like an analysis of the game that I came up with, this is something that other people have come up with in the past, is that it would seem as if the first half of Final Fantasy 13 is really trying to drive home this idea that these godlike beings are leading humans along on a string by making the actual structure of the game, conversely, very string-like or very linear. The reason why the opening section of Final Fantasy 13 is so linear is because they're trying to kind of drive home this idea of like humans basically being kind of corralled along this straight path towards their eventual doom. The problem with Final Fantasy 13, though, is that it goes way too hard into that metaphor, and it features such a long, extended portion of this game that it's linear that ultimately that metaphor was lost on most people, and most people just complained on the other side of it that that was just overly linear. They didn't get whatever deeper meaning they were going for. However, once you exited the linear portion of the game, you got to a section of the game that was very open-ended and a lot more enjoyable, and in many ways made up for a lot of the earlier linear section of the game. I feel like The Last of Us Part 2 is very similar in that during the first half of the game is very dark and brooding, and you see Ellie engage in a number of gruesome and many people would argue unforgivable acts. And all of this violence serves a purpose. It's meant to kind of show the depths to which Ellie has sunk. It's meant to make you more sympathetic towards Abby's cause when you eventually switch over to her and you realize that from her perspective, Ellie was the villain of her story. For me personally, though, I just felt like they went a little bit too hard in what they were trying to do with Ellie, to the point that I felt like that message that they were trying to impart kind of got lost a little bit in the shuffle. I think that this message that they were kind of trying to communicate, that Ellie's depravity, how she's secretly the villain of Abby's story, I feel like that message became a little bit too clear too quickly. And once it became too clear too quickly, I felt like so many of the combat encounters which happened on CL Days 2 and 3 just felt excessive and unnecessary, and I don't feel like the game would have been any worse off if we had had any less of those combat encounters. At the end of the day, though, once we switch over to Abby, and especially once we got to Abby Day 2, I thought the game was almost perfect. There are a few little issues here and there that I, did not totally jibe with, but for the most part, I thought that the game totally made up for whatever grievances I had in its first half, much in the same way that I feel like the open world sections of Final Fantasy XIII towards its latter half make up for the overly linear sections of its first half.
So, Kozi, you're Team Abby.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay.
All right.
I appreciate that perspective. I don't think you're wrong, to be honest. I think there's a lot of excess in the Ellie portions of the game. But not knowing what's going to come in the latter half of the game, at least for me personally, I felt like she was still working towards the same goal of avenging Joel, and at that moment, I still felt like she was justified in what she was doing, even though at times it did become a little excessive, because it, like Alex said, it's a story of revenge, and all of these people were complicit in what Abby did because they were all in the room when it happened. When it came to the Joel situation in the first game, there were 2 or 3 people in the room, and he knew that the doctors were all complicit in trying to murder Ellie to save the world, and that whole thing of the morality of keeping her safe versus a potential cure is one that he lived with until the day he died. But ultimately, Ellie is just a sad, scared teenager still, because you mature in a world like this, you're going to be pretty fucked up. And she does some pretty fucked up things.
Yeah, like I think it's like it was super hard. I guess I feel like I'll get to this later because it's gonna jump ahead a little bit to when we get to the Abby conversation. I'm just seeing Jeebus in the chat and I'm like, oh, but I kind of have like a thing to add on to it, but I'll kind of
we will don't worry,
we'll get to that. I want to go back a little bit just because I did kind of skip over a little bit because I forgot at the end of each day there's a flashback with each character, and so I very quickly want to touch on flashbacks for day 1 and day 2. The day one is another moment that's one of the best moments in the entire series. It is when Joel, for Ellie's birthday, takes her to a museum, and oh my god, this whole section was so great because it was just these 2 characters walking around a museum. It's all of the things Ellie likes, which are dinosaurs and space, and there's just so much character interaction during this moment between these 2 that I absolutely loved it.
This was the giraffe moment.
Yeah,
100%
in this game.
Yeah. It made my heart feel so nice, but then also really sad when you realize it's like, oh, he's not here for her anymore. It made like this was one of those moments that helped, though. It's like you have that sort of duality with Joel. It's like he's kind of a terrible, like he's done terrible things. I won't say he's a terrible person because this is kind of the world that he's been subjected to, but he's also still when it comes to the people he cares about, he's still just like, he's a really sweet person when the world doesn't force him not to be. And so it really helps sort of like put this duality on him that I think the first game did like kind of touched on a little bit with the Sarah stuff and like some of the conversations he has with Ellie, but I think this game really, really goes in depth with that and really kind of shows like the other side of Joel that we didn't get to really see as much. So and then the second flashback is Ellie and Tommy are on patrol. She gets to use his gun, and then he basically like makes her and Joel go off to, and like they're like, oh, let's get some strings for your guitar because there's a music store. They go into a hotel. They have to fight a bloater. Or no, it was a bloater. I forgot.
Yeah.
There's the shamblers that are the other ones, but yeah, they fight a bloater. Joel basically kills it with a machete, which was a really, really badass moment for Joel. Then they find two people who ran away from Jackson to like a couple, and they were dead. And they were like they wrote a letter like being like sorry to our families. And then from there, Ellie is like, "What happened in that hospital? Like, you have to tell me." And he's like, he was like, no, I'm not going to. Like, you know what I've told you. And from there, they kind of have a disagreement. And so now we can continue on with day 3. Day 3, they figure out they figure out where Tommy is. He's heading to the marina. So Ellie and Jesse head towards that direction. They find a boat. They know where Abby is, and they know where Tommy is. And so Jesse goes to where Tommy is, and Ellie is continuing on her revenge pursuit. And she goes towards the aquarium. This is where you get the boat section. I was assuming this was going to be the other open world section. It wasn't. It was very, very linear in its sense, just because you got another vehicle.
The stupidest thing Ellie did in the entire game.
Yeah, at this point, this was like this was the point of no return. So, so finally,
so hold on. What would you say was specifically the part about this section that you thought was dumb?
Well, not dumb, but I think Ellie, like, being driven by revenge the way she was, it's still a mistake to go up against Abby 1-on-1 when you could potentially be going up against her 3-on-1.
Or
right, however many there might be. We don't even know if Abby's alone. So
yeah,
you get Jesse, get Tommy, go.
Yeah. The revenge has blinded her, basically.
Her choosing to spurn Jesse, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Her choosing to confront Abby over finding Tommy.
Yes. And
because she feels like Jesse is going to stop her from doing what she wants to do, which is ultimately kill Abby.
Yeah, because they had like an agreement that they were going to find Tommy and head home because of Dina being she's only going to get worse throughout the coming days and weeks, and so they needed to get her back to Jackson. So from there, Ellie finally reaches the aquarium. There's a point, but Naughty Dog did lie to us. They said that we weren't going to have to kill any dogs. We did kill a dog because Ellie falls through a vent and a dog attacks her.
There were dogs earlier on in the normal combat sequences, but you don't necessarily, I guess, allegedly have to do anything about them.
You can sneak around them
because fucking it didn't work.
I can't say that I didn't have to kill any dogs because I definitely did because I'm not good enough at this game.
And because you hate dogs, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just
turned on the accessibility setting of if you're lying on the ground, you're invisible to literally everyone.
Yeah.
Didn't look in the accessibility settings to be honest.
You should have, and we're going to talk about it in a bit.
There's some great features. But continuing on, you do kill a dog, and then you find two people. You find Owen and you find Mel. You don't know I think you know their names, but who whatever.
I think she knows them from the Polaroids that she finds in the hell.
Yes, you are right. And so we find these two people, and Ellie is trying to do the same map trick that Tommy and Joel have both used before because she learned it from them. She's not very good at it because she's kind of like telling them, it's like, point to on the map right where you're standing in front of me and the other person could definitely see. But like, she's just fueled by rage at this point. So I'm not chalking this up as like a nitpick or anything or like a plot hole or anything. I'm just saying like, she's definitely like, she's not thinking straight at this point.
She's in blind
rage.
Yeah. And at that point, Mel tries to attack her. Ellie's switchblade eventually ends up in Mel's throat, and she also kills Owen. Owen is bleeding out, and he says she's pregnant. and Ellie realizes that Mel is pregnant. And from there, Ellie kind of has a freak out of, oh my god, I didn't just kill 2 people, I definitely killed three lives, or like, because Mel is pregnant. And so it's like,
I had at this point I had forgotten earlier in the game when Owen had said she was pregnant. So when they
Yeah.
revealed that here, I was nearly sick to my stomach.
yeah, you're also like, you also don't know Mel at this point, so it's like you don't know that that's that character. And so it's like you're kind of, again, they do a very good job of just kind of putting you in the same headspace of the character. You're just like, holy shit, what have I done? This is, though obviously in the context of the game you didn't have a choice, this is how the story is being presented, but you're still like, oh my god. And from there, Tommy and Jesse find Ellie and they decide to go back to the theater. And at this point, they have all decided, we're going to go back to Jackson. They ask Ellie, is that okay with you? And she's like, it has to be. And so from there, they decide to, or they're kind of bantering. Tommy says that he found some jewelry as a makeshift like sorry present for Maria, and he goes to go get it to show them. And from there, we hear a scuffle. Ellie and Jesse head through from the theater to the main entrance, and we see Abby. Well, first off, Jesse gets shot in the face, just right away, and from there we see Abby is standing over Tommy, and they have a bit of an altercation. Abby is like, "We let you live, and you threw it away," and it gets really close on Abby, and we think she's about to pull the trigger, and then fade to black.
Credits roll.
Seattle day 3 complete. This was quite the section story wise. This was like, I thought we were getting close to the end of the game at this point.
Yeah, I thought we were about to get the climax. We're gonna fight Abby at this point.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to rag on the Ellie sections anymore, but like I thought, Ellie going up to the aquarium in this section of the game was a great illustration of like both what I really did enjoy about Ellie's sections of the game, and also what I really didn't enjoy, where I thought the approach to the aquarium in the boat was fantastic. It was so dramatic, so tense. I didn't enjoy the fact that the game started you off so far away from the aquarium and just had you do a lot of, like, I feel needless grinding to get all the way there. And it's like, it's not like the game starts you at the theater. It starts you at a kind of midway point between the theater and the aquarium. So it's like, well, couldn't you put me a little bit closer? But again, I would say a really great conclusion.
Yeah, I really like I believe it's here, or maybe towards the end of it's day 3, I think, where the Seraphites are introduced as another
in the park
that you're fighting against, and that reveal of, oh, it's not just the wolves. There's these other fucking crazy ass people out here murdering people with bows and arrows and shit. And I'm just like,
and they're whistling too.
Yeah, when they're whistling to each other.
I love I play games with subtitles on, and to get into the accessibility settings a little bit, there's an option to turn on an arrow that essentially tells you from what direction somebody is speaking if they're not on screen.
Oh, interesting.
And when I had a whistle come up and the whistle was behind me, I nearly shit myself. Like, those moments got very, very tense of trying to crawl through the grass and avoid the Seraphites, or use whatever I had access to, usually the pistol with the silencer on, to keep them from finding me. And it got really tense through those moments. And I really like the fact that you're sort of dropped into the middle of what you later find out is this big turf war, essentially, between 2 rival factions.
Mm-hmm.
And even still, Ellie does not give 2 shits. She is on a hell path towards Abby, because that's all she really cares about in this moment. And I really like what they did here. And I do have something to say before we get into what happens next. So I'll let everyone else talk about day 3, and then I have one more thing to say.
I just want to say I am in agreement that the whistling was great. Did you feel, though, that having the subtitles on kind of ruined the kind of mystery and scariness of the whistling, though?
Not really.
No,
okay.
I thought the way that they did it first was like, you just kind of like it. You still don't know what the deal is, and then when they do, like, you hear some whistling and you hear it regardless, and like it doesn't say who it's from, and then you get the arrow in your shoulder. like, because that's unavoidable. That's kind of like the introduction that like there's no way that like the subtitles was going to spoil that. So I think it was like, regardless if you had subtitles or not on, it was a really good introduction that
okay,
yeah.
so I didn't have subtitles on, and I so I only realized I was hearing communication whistles in retrospect. I didn't like I heard this whistle and I thought, it didn't quite sound like a bird, but I thought maybe I don't know, I'm walking through a park, what is this? And then all of a sudden Ellie gets the arrow in the shoulder and oh fuck, what the fuck's going on? And it threw me for a loop, right? So for me, I going into it without any of the text on screen or anything like that, I just sort of the immersion of like, oh, that's a weird fucking oh god, right? And just
Yeah,
I mean,
and,
it's supposed
like,
to surprise you, just like
Yeah,
it
and
did
nothing
Ellie.
in the subtitles really gives that away. In any sense. I think they actually do a really good job of not necessarily camouflaging what's happening with the subtitles, but it's not like having descriptive audio turned on of, oh, a whistle is coming from here that is more intent for whatever reason it may be. It's just I don't know. I've always been the kind of person to play with subtitles on because I feel like I miss some things that are just spoken when I'm not entirely focused on it. I feel like it helps, but
like obviously I think
it did ruin that surprise for me.
We're all in agreement that obviously, subtitles are important for people who are kind of hard of hearing, and there's, no shame in using them.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things where I do wonder if I would have been a little bit more freaked out by the whistling if I hadn't seen at the bottom of the screen alert whistle or nervous whistle or what have you.
Fair enough.
Oh, did you have them turned on, Kozi, or no?
I did have subtitles turned on.
Yeah. Okay.
So did you want to say your one last thing about day 3 before we continue on?
My one last thing is actually kind of the transition between day 3 and the start of Seattle day 1 is they went full Avengers Endgame with it of fade to black. You don't know what's coming, and they subvert your expectations by having Seattle day 1 just pop up on screen, similar to the Endgame moment of 5 years later. No one knew it was coming. It subverted expectations, and it threw everyone in the theater, or in this case, my living room, for a loop.
So before we get to that, because I did skip over another one of the flashbacks because I apparently forgot where they were all placed. So there was one more flashback with Ellie that actually is also very important. She goes to the Salt Lake City hospital. She finds a recording from Mel specifically. Listening to it, turns out that she learns the truth, and Joel comes to find her. She talks to Joel, and she's like, "You tell me the truth about what happened, otherwise I'm done. I'm leaving." And Joel tells her the truth, like the honest to God truth, and then she says that she'll return to Jackson, but their relationship is done. Like she is no longer going to like talk to him. Like she is done with Joel. And this was a really sort of sad moment because from that point forward, we hadn't seen them talk to each other at any of the points up to the like previous before his death. And so we don't know like how did there, because like she's a little bit older in that scene, but she's still not to the age that she is where the game starts. And so it really kind of put in perspective of like, oh, it like she's still it felt like there was something more that happened to be like, there's a reason why she's still fueled with this much revenge. If she was like if she said she was like done with Joel.
There's part of it that you'll end up going through where you think, and it consistently changes to, a different phrase or whatever, where you think, oh shit, that's the last thing she said to him. And then it goes to the next flat. Oh wait, no, this could have been the last thing she said to him, right? Because you have that moment where she says that they're done. This is the last like real valuable thing that she said to him. Maybe you'll find out later, what really was the last thing she said to him. But that's kind of like the thread, kind of like pushing you forward on her tale of revenge, is just like, fuck, she's got to get revenge because she feels guilty because that's the last thing she said to him. And
so So continuing forward from Abby about to pull the trigger on Ellie, we don't actually get the Seattle Day 1 yet. We get a flashback to to Salt Lake City, and we're playing as a younger Abby. And it turns out we learn, because she's looking for her father, and it turns out we learn that her father was the surgeon, was the Firefly surgeon. He is the one who was talking to Marlene to pressure Marlene into doing the surgery to be able to make the vaccine for the cordyceps. And Marlene is hesitant about it, but finally she caves. Is like, okay, this is the greater good. We do have to tell Joel though, because he did travel halfway across the country to do this. And so she's like, we're gonna go tell Joel. And then he goes to prepare for surgery. And then we find out that Abby then finds his body, and she is now, this is the point where we see what drives her, and that she is in a very similar boat to Ellie, where she's going to be driven by revenge. And from there, that's when we get the Seattle Day 1. And this is the point where you find out, oh shit, we're doing the next 3 days as Abby.
So I didn't think that. I
Really?
saw Seattle Day 1, right? And we're playing as Abby some more. It took me until the second day before I realized that, oh fuck, no, this we're doing the whole thing here. Because at one point, like when you first start being able, oh look, wow, there's a small character tree for Abby as well. That's interesting to see. I got it in my head that, oh fuck, wait, no, Abby's the bad person. She's going to be the final boss. I don't want to build Abby's character up in such a way that it makes her more difficult to fight later on. That'd be stupid of me. I can't do that. As you go through, you realize that, oh no, you're going to be with Abby for a while. You may as well just build her up and have fun as you go. But, it wasn't entirely clear to me when I first got there, but yeah.
Right.
So, as somebody who, as I previously revealed, had been spoilt to what was going to happen in this game, who knew that there was going to be an extended period throughout the game where I was going to be playing exclusively as Abby, I was really concerned when I reached the end of Ellie's campaign that Abby's campaign was going to be revealed to be this cat and mouse game with Ellie, where every single time that Ellie was at a location, you were going to learn that Abby was actually 6 feet behind her or 6 steps ahead of her. That her entire campaign would be like, she would learn that Ellie killed one of her friends. She would go to the location where a friend was killed. She would learn that, oh, now Ellie's in this other location. She would go in pursuit of Ellie, and then the cycle would repeat itself. And so I was really, really happy to discover that, bar a few crossovers here and there, for the most part, Abby's campaign really kind of marched to the beat of its own drum and went in its own direction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, I'm curious about you guys. Like, were you expecting that Abby's campaign would be a lot more intertwined with Ellie's, or were you expecting it to kind of be its own thing? And, like, did you have any kind of reservations, or were you looking forward to what you imagine it would be about?
I was kind of expecting it to be its sort of own thing, just by the way that, like, Ellie was sort of chasing her, and she's like, oh, Abby's in this place. Oh, no, Abby's now in this place. So it's like, I kind of expected it to kind of have its own sort of story a little bit. And then, like, at day 3 is when, like, I kind of expected the sort of, I didn't know what the specific details were going to be, but I kind of figured what the structure of it was going to be.
So for me, from a gameplay perspective, I didn't like the fact that we were starting this new character halfway through the game, because I felt like I'd gotten to the point where I'm feeling pretty good with the gear that Ellie has, and now we're starting a whole new progression tree, a whole new weapon upgrade tree for all these weapons we're picking up now for Abby. And I felt like it was kind of rough by resetting us halfway through this game. That being said, I kind of feel the same way as Alex, of Abby was ahead and we didn't know what she was up to over these 3 days. So I was looking forward to seeing what had actually happened, and then what they ended up delivering with the story was absolutely not what I expected, and I really like what they did, or what they presented to the player in those 3 days, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, so I'll do Seattle Day 1 as Abby, and then we can kind of I think then we can get out our sort of feelings about, like, playing as Abby, because this was a huge sort of shock a lot of people compare it to the moment in Metal Gear Solid 2 where you start playing as Ocelot. Or not Ocelot, Raiden, that's his name. Sorry, my mistake. Or you play
those
as
games aren't confusing.
or when you play as the Arbiter in Halo 2. Like it was one of those
or
types.
when you play
John
with,
Locke
I was gonna say
in
as you
Halo
play as
5.
John Locke, right?
Oh no, that was
right?
actually
Yeah,
John
we knew
Locke
that was
actually
happening.
known in the upcoming
advertising,
trailers
yeah.
and everything.
What
the
if you didn't?
advertising
What if you
and
didn't?
whatnot.
Hold
consume
on,
the
I've got
advertising?
another comparison. How about Roxas at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2?
All right, let's keep going. Day 1, Seattle. We are now playing as Abby. We are in the dome. We see what the WLF is doing, like how organized they are. They have a shitload of people. They have farms. They have workout equipment for Abby to train and get buff.
You get to play with the dogs.
There are a lot of dogs, and I'm pretty sure I killed all of those dogs.
Yep.
So sad.
There's one dog, specifically Bear.
Oh
Yeah.
my
I
God,
remember
Bear.
I specifically because I
killing
know
Bear.
I know a dog named Bear in real life. So when
Oh,
that name came up, I was like, that one really stuck to me. And then when you run into Bear later, I got really sad.
Well, no, so that Bear comes up when you're playing with Ellie.
Yeah.
Right, but you don't know it's Bear necessarily, because like you'll just be playing stealthily or whatever. You'll have decided that, oh fuck no, you know what, I need these dogs can track my scent. I need to take them out first, and I want to do it as quickly and painlessly as possible. So you do that in front of the Bear's caretaker, and then the caretaker just goes, "No, Bear." I'm like, oh fuck, the dogs have names too? Fuck.
Everything has a name, and you're
Everything
supposed to
has
feel
a name.
bad.
So
Okay.
then, yeah.
If you guys don't mind, because we are running a little bit long and it is a little late, I'm going to do all 3 of Abby's days rapid fire, and
Sure.
then we can talk about Abby as a whole, because
Yeah.
I think we can kind of do it like that. So, day 1, Abby and her friends, I can't remember what the one guy's name is, but he was cool, and Mel, they go out, Manny, Mel, and Abby all go out on patrol.
Wait, hold on.
Mhm.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to Owen.
No, the guy who goes out on patrol. You're right. It is Manny.
Yeah.
They all go out on patrol. There's Alice, the good dog, with you guys, and you guys get intercepted by Seraphites. You're on your own. You have to fight your way through. You finally get back to the WLF. They meet up with you guys, and you meet Isaac for the first time, which played by Jeffrey Wright, which was pretty damn cool reveal. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of nerded out a little bit about that. So then. From there, you learn that Owen has shot one of the people, and they are dead. And Abby goes to look for Owen. Go ahead, Mitch.
Until you said it just now, I didn't realize he was played by Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had to Google him, like, wait a minute, I know that. Oh shit.
All right then. I thought
No
it was
idea.
super obvious, but apparently not.
I guess I was just super invested in everything and it didn't really click.
I have a knack for seeing faces. Either
It
way,
wasn't his face though, right? Like it wasn't.
It definitely was. Regardless,
Okay.
that's not important. We find out that Owen has shot one of their friends, and he died, and we don't know what the fuck is up with Owen. So Abby goes to go look for him, and Manny helps you escape through the compound, and you're traveling through. You're dealing with Seraphites, and then you get ambushed, and you get captured, and you start to some of those rituals that we've seen of the Seraphites hanging people. Abby is now a part of that, and she is being hanged. And we meet there's 3 Seraphites, and they drag this one person, and she spits on the one preacher woman, and she says, "Clip her wings." And so they take a hammer and break her arm in like 4 sections. It was super brutal. And from there, we see then arrows start coming from the forest, killing all the Seraphites. And we meet two. Presumably, these are Seraphites who have abandoned the cause. They have deserted, and they save Abby. And then you have to deal with a bunch of stalkers, which the stalkers were very scary enemies because you couldn't hear them in listen mode. Which, oh my god, they are.
If you looked around carefully, you could see them like poking their head up above a box or around a wall or something like that, and it was just really
absolutely fucking terrifying.
I I thought they were not that terrible. Once I learned about them and realized how their mechanic, I just sort of like, okay, just fucking stop, just chase me, just chase, okay, and then shock.
The first time I ran into them, I had to actually stop playing the game because I'm like, no, I cannot deal with this at 11:30 at night. No, fuck off. I need to sleep tonight. Go away. I can't do this. Nope.
Yeah. So Abby and these two Seraphites are together in the forest. They fight off. They get to a compound, and Abby then leaves them behind to go find Owen. She gets to the aquarium, then finds out what the fuck was up with Owen. Owen decides it wasn't worth killing the Seraphite who had just given up at this point, and the guy who he shot was trying to force him to, and so then he shoots this person, and the guy dies. Abby and Owen have. Was it this point where they have their night of passion?
No, I think that was
No.
the night leading
Was
into
that day?
day 3.
No, it was
End
in
of
day.
day
It was in day one. It was in day one. It had to have been
Yeah.
because Mel
Mel
shows up
shows up in day
to
2,
do the
right?
yeah. So
Okay, yeah.
so Abby and Owen, because they were originally dating back when Abby lost her father, and they rekindled that a little bit in a very, very graphic, unexpected scene. So from there, we then get another flashback of Abby and Owen discovering the aquarium for the first time. This was another nice moment, but I'm not going to get into. I'll get into my feelings about it later. So Abby and Owen discover the aquarium. Owen is like, "This is my place. Let's hang out. Let's make out. Let's be teenagers." And Abby's like, "No, I've got to go train." And we start to sort of see how her mindset has been. She wants to train. So end of that flashback into Seattle day 2. Abby feels guilty about leaving those two Seraphites behind. She goes and saves them because the other Seraphites have found them, and then she goes saves them. She sees how bad. She learns that their names are Yara and Lev. She realizes how bad Yara's arm is, so she brings them both to the aquarium. Mel is there and Mel says Mel is like she needs surgery on her arm. She needs it to be removed, otherwise she is going to die. And so Abby and Lev have to go get go to the hospital that we find out that we were there earlier as Ellie to go get supplies. And so from there, Lev and Abby there's a sky bridge. They go across the sky bridge. This is a real bonding moment between the two of them. Then
you realize that the height mechanic with Abby too, real quick.
Yeah.
If you look down and you're at any like secondary level above street level or anything like that, Abby's visions, like the field of view, starts to get weird, and
really?
Abby starts to hyperventilate. Yeah.
So Abby
Holy
suffers
shit.
from vertigo. So if you look down from any height, everything tunnel visions, and
Holy
it's
shit.
one of the best things I've ever seen implemented in a game.
That's
I
so
need to
cool.
go back and play it. It's
Like,
so cool.
Go ahead.
I do also want to praise the mechanic of regaining your balance when you're on a kind of scary beam or piece of wood out in the middle of nothingness. Just because I remember about a decade ago playing a little game by the name of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and that featured a very similar balancing mechanic of you're on a piece of wood and then, Link will lose his balance. And I always kind of hated those sections because it's like it feels very clearly like the developers are just trying to shoehorn in an extra little challenge for you to do. Here, it's like this actually serves a narrative purpose, and you actually genuinely do really fear for Abby's life in a way that you never feared for Link's back in the day.
There's a lot of character progression with like that specific like detail of her. So from there, they go through the hotel, they make it to the hospital. Abby has to go into the underground section of the hospital because that's the part that the WLF hasn't been able to get to because it's been kind of quarantined off. And so from there, Abby has to turn the power on. She turns the power on. She finds the ambulance that has the medical supply, and this is where she meets the Rat King, which is a boss that seems to be. It's like 3 people that are all fused together into this giant monster.
We need to talk about the Rat King section.
Did you see the video Naughty Dog put out about how they did the mocap for that?
Yes,
They literally tied
cool.
3 people together.
Yeah, I love seeing the behind the scenes of a lot of the mocap stuff from this. Is like it's really cool and really worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, no, so the Rat King section was, I found it to be somewhat frustrating.
Yeah,
it not, I mean, like, I don't play a lot of horror games necessarily, but like, I just it's hard for me to sort of explain. I just ended up getting like too frustrated in this section. Like, as cool as it was, dying to that thing like 10 times like I did took me right out of the experience in a way that I don't think helped it at all. But like, yeah, it was a cool, interesting sequence and segment of the game, but I found not the difficulty of it, but the I don't know, you didn't quite fully understand like all the mechanics that were at your disposal for the section. Like, I didn't feel like I had enough supplies and stuff like that. But I eventually, like, after a couple of respawns, and it respawns you away from the monster for a bit, but his health is all back and everything. I eventually figured out a rhythm, but it took a few tries.
It's
I liked kind of how out of place this seemed in the course of the game, because we find out that like in most major cities, hospitals were going to be ground zero for the outbreak. So to have the strangest, most bizarre, outlandish, crazy, big ass clicker be here, or infected, or whatever you want to call it, I actually really like that touch, but I know it didn't jive with everybody.
I think it was cool that Naughty Dog straight up let you fight the monster instead of having its fight take place over a cinematic style sequence, which is, I feel, typically the way that Naughty Dog tends to handle its boss fights in most of its games nowadays. I just feel like they could have given players more ground to fight the monster on instead of such an enclosed space.
So I think my issue may have been like a similar issue to where in other combat sequences, like against normal people or dogs or whatever else you fought, for some reason I didn't feel like I was presented with the options that everybody else got. I'm not sure why or how, or I just couldn't see them in the moment or something like that. But like, if there had actually been a moment where you could, I don't know, escape somehow and crush the beast with like some car in the parking lot behind you or whatever, that would have been something, because I kept running around this combat arena for following the exit signs, but I couldn't get out, right? And like, I could get out once the thing was dead, but I couldn't get out until it was dead. So
It sort of subverted what you're able to do in the rest of the game, which you can avoid most of the combat in this game, but this is one thing you actually had to take down.
yeah.
I liked, usually I don't really like Naughty Dog bosses. I think Uncharted 2 has one of the worst bosses in any of their games.
Yeah.
I think even The Last of Us with David was a very not good boss fight. And I actually really appreciated that. I think like Naughty Dog put a lot of attention specifically with the Rat King, as well as just like, I thought it was just very unexpected. The design of it was really horrifying, and I really liked this sort of change of pace, because for the most part I was playing the game as stealthily as I could, and I was doing relatively well with it, where this was like, oh shit, no, I don't have a choice, time to use all of those pipe bombs that I made.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed it for what it was, and it was a very nice sort of change of pace to the rest of the game up to that point. So continuing on, Abby gets out. Also, the WLF is now onto her that she has gone AWOL, and they are looking for her. And Lev saves her, and they get back to the aquarium. And Lev and Abby are waiting out in the waiting area. Alice comes by. Lev is afraid of dogs, because obviously the only encounters that he has had with dogs have been the WLF dogs trying to kill him. So of course he's going to be kind of nervous around dogs. But Alice is like a very sweet dog, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he gets to pet Alice for the first time. It's really nice. It's a really nice, sweet section.
And they play with throwing the toy around and stuff. Yeah,
that's a little bit later, but we'll get to that. Regardless, Yara's arm has been removed. She is fine. She is resting now. And that is the end of Seattle Day 2. We get another flashback with Abby. This is Christmas time now. And Abby goes to visit Owen in the aquarium. She gets to beat the high score from Mel and Owen in the Arrow game. And Owen reluctantly puts her name on the board. From there, Abby reveals that they found Joel. They know where he is. Or, well, they have a vague idea of where he is, which is Jackson. And she says to Owen, like, you're in with this, right? And Owen's like, there's no way Isaac would have approved this. And Isaac, of course, would, because he loves justice. And so this is with the point where they're like, we're doing this. And we get to see a little bit more of the character interactions between the two of them. That's the end of that flashback. Now, Seattle Day 3 for Abby. Lev is upset because Lev wants to go get the Yara and his mom. Yara and himself have an argument, and Lev runs away. And Yara and Abby go look for like an apology present, and they find a shark toy. This is where you get to play with Alice. You get to do the ball throwing or the toy throwing. Yara as well gets her first real interaction with the dog as well, which is very nice because she was also a warrior because she has the scars on the sides of her face, which is a nice little character detail. And so it was a very nice interaction with them. And it also makes you feel really sad because you remember, oh yeah, I killed that dog like 10 hours ago. Yeah. So they find out that Lev has ran away to the island to go and find their mom. And so Abby and Yara go after him. They reach the island. They know that the WLF is also going to be heading towards the island because they're doing an invasion. And then they're caught in the middle of a civil war, or they're caught in the middle of the turf war. Like this is like the final battle in some senses.
So hold on, quick question. Can somebody explain this island that the Seraphites are living on? Was this like originally part of the landmass of Seattle and basically
Yeah,
okay.
earthquakes basically caused flooding around it, so it literally became an island where the needle is.
Space needle is.
The space needle, yeah.
Is this something that was like explained in like some lore or like notes?
It's kind of, you can kind of just like, because like of the way that the rest of the city is like falling apart and there's like huge like
the river
flooding and rivers. It's kind of assumed that there was like some sort of, either like with the nature taking over, that there was probably some like natural disaster that then caused like all of this to happen and the flooding. So it's not directly explained, but you can kind of like pick up the pieces of what happened. So
it's directly explained that we kind of passed over is why Lev ran away in the first place, like why they're on the run and all of that. And I think that was very important for the character progression. And honestly, for me, at least the way I played Abby, part of the reason why I felt so attached to the two characters is that revelation of why they ran away in the first place.
So yeah, so earlier Abby's like, why are you guys on the run? Like, why are you guys abandoned? Like, why are you guys rejected Seraphites? And Lev says it's because I shaved my head. And we find out later that
from his sister.
Yeah. Well, we find out. Well, we hear one of the other
Seraphites start calling Lev Lily.
Yeah, and from there we can kind of connect the dots of.
No, I think like, the sister also mentions at one point that Lev's role in their society was to be a wife for one of the chieftains.
Well, no, it's at this point during the explanation.
Yeah, like there's a few things, and then we learn about the Lev was supposed to be a wife, and
that isn't the role that he wanted to fill in their society, and shaving the head was something that the men did.
It was the act of rebellion.
Yeah.
And so from there, it really kind of puts in perspective of where Lev is coming from, and that, you know, it's like he still cares for his mom, but like he's kind of been rejected by the society that he's basically, it's all he's ever known.
Yeah, go
ahead.
Okay, so this was like a big trans character reveal, right? I remember seeing like after I had finished the game, people on the internet still trying to play through it and stuff, and so I went looking at that point, and I saw a lot of people assuming that because of Abby's body type that she was going to be the trans character. And it's like, you make that face, Mitch, but yeah, it was a thing that I saw going around. Like a lot of people not reading context clues and not necessarily paying attention. It's just I don't know. Did you guys never got that vibe from Abby? Because yeah, like
we literally
No.
saw her like when she was like 14.
yeah,
Before she like dedicated herself to getting fucking jacked, and
Yeah.
like it was just like it's dumb. It's
Yeah,
dumb
a lot of
internet.
internet bullshit.
This is the toxic masculinity you see on the internet of, yeah, no, women can't be built like that. Although we see people and women who are built like friggin' rock stars, and
Yeah.
shout out to them because I could never do that for myself. And it's just the internet finding more things to complain about when it's just a story being told. And these, like, not everyone fits the mold of what you would expect them to be in the post-apocalypse. There are still going to be people that are trans and have to deal with that on top of dealing with the fucking apocalypse, as well as people committing to their fitness and knowing that if you ain't fit, you ain't gonna last in this kind of world.
Not only that, but like literally one of the first things that you see when you start out Abby's campaign is a giant gymnasium that's right outside her cabin room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like clearly Naughty Dog was very self-conscious about we need to make sure that players believe that she could be this ripped, and they succeeded. I did feel in the moment that like kind of feel like maybe we could have waited to show the gym a couple floors up, but
The
I also don't
only
think you needed to show the gym. Like
I liked it because it added context to the how set up the WLF is just in
yeah,
general.
exactly.
That's understandable. Yeah.
The only unrealistic thing about Abby is the fact that she ate a burrito in 3 bites.
I don't know.
You haven't seen me eat a burrito.
Yeah.
All right, maybe I'm the weirdo here. Okay, moving forward, continuing on day 3. The Civil War, the WLF has landed on the beach. They reach Lev's mother's house, and we find Lev killed his mom in self-defense, and it was
She rejected him. essentially.
yeah, and so he didn't have a choice, and she's dead, and he's kind of freaking out. But Yara manages to sort of get through to him, and they decide, yep, it's time for us to leave. Let's get the hell out of here. And from there, they meet Isaac again, and Isaac confronts Abby, and Lev is like, Abby's like, don't shoot them, like they're not part of the Seraphites, and Isaac's like, I'm gonna shoot them, and Yara in her final breath shoots Isaac, presumably killing him. We never see him again, so I'm assuming he died at that point. It doesn't exactly matter if he lived or died, but from there, Yara is dead, and Lev and Abby have to make a run for it. They lock themselves in a building, and Lev is like, your people did this. And one of the most character defining moments of Abby is saying, no, you're my people. I really wanted to point that out before we continue, before we start the real discussion. But that was a moment that really impacted me. So from there, they get off the island after a brutal fucking fight with the giant. That moment was insane when Abby fights the giant dude and basically slashes him to pieces and is grabbing him by like his like hanging jaw and shit like that. Like it was some attention to detail that I almost felt was unnecessary. So from there, they get off the island. The island is literal in flames, and they reach back to the aquarium where they find Owen and Mel dead and a map of that Ellie had left behind, and they know to go back to the movie theater because that's where Ellie had kind of marked as like the home base for them. And from there, that's when Abby jumps Tommy, holds him up at gunpoint, shoots Jesse in the face, and we see the, before we get to how that altercation ends between Ellie and Abby, what do we like? I want to talk about just playing as Abby in its sort of entirety, because we didn't really get to go into details about that, because this was like the big thing about this game was playing as Abby.
I mean, in general, I enjoyed my experiences playing as Abby more than Ellie. I mean, I think I partially appreciated the extra firepower that Abby had up her arsenal. I think that definitely made a lot of the combat encounters a lot more easygoing than they were during Ellie's playthrough. More than that, though, I like the fact that there weren't quite as many combat encounters IMO throughout her playthrough. I felt like there were a lot more moments like the bridge, for example, or like the ride out into the expanse on the island while it's all burning down, where it is a little bit more experiential. So that was definitely, that and just her growth as a character were definitely two of the main reasons why I liked playing as her more than Ellie.
Fair enough. I guess I just want to quickly sort of bring up like just my experience with playing as Abby. It was really, for the first like day and a half, it was really hard to get into her shoes, because regardless of, it's like, okay, I know what you're doing. I feel sympathy because Joel did kill her father, and her father basically played almost a very similar role to Sarah in the first game, where it was like, you have to establish this character super quickly, you have to make them really likable, and then they have to die. And I think they did that very, very well with like the whole rescuing the zebra thing. Like, you really like Abby's father for like the very little bit that we get to see of him, and from there it was really hard to connect with her, because it's like, even though it's like she did kill Joel, and yeah, she is very justified in it, but the way she did it was also super brutal, and she beat him to death with a golf club. Like, it's hard to get invested with her, and even still, it is still hard to be like, I felt like you were justified, but you're also like, your method was like, and it shows like the buildup of rage and what it does to people. Though the moment on the bridge when they both fall off into the pool and they kind of have like that moment, this was the moment where I like actually started to attach myself to Abby, and I was like, I want to see where this story's going, even though I know where it's gonna kind of end, or where I think it's gonna end. I'm still like, I'm really now, I almost forgot about it for a little bit because I started to really get invested in her story.
I think I've said throughout the way I feel, and
fair enough.
I concur.
Okay, I'm trying to get through this as sort of as fast as possible while still being able to bring up good discussion. So from here, Abby and Ellie have their sort of showdown. Ellie manages to escape to the back of the theater, where Abby does chase her. And at this point, I was expecting the switch to happen, where you switch back to Ellie, and the fact that you play as Abby through this boss fight,
Ellie was the final boss the whole time. That's what it seems.
Yeah, and they do a very similar. I like how they did it in this game versus. It's very similar to the fight with David in the first game, but I thought that they handled it a lot better with how Ellie just moved, and it wasn't like even though it was like you have to sneak up on her 3 times, it felt more real to her character. It wasn't just like, oh, he's got a gun, now he's got a machete, now he's hiding with the machete. Like, it felt more.
David felt like a video game, where Ellie felt like you were also like, past you was controlling Ellie, trying to lay traps and trying to do that sort of thing. Like, there was still like, it was still, your typical video game 3-phase sort of fight, but it definitely, her movement and everything definitely felt a lot more natural.
Yeah.
It felt like she felt like a character in the game instead of feeling like a boss fight, because you spend the first half of the game playing as her.
Yeah. At this point, I was also just like, oh, I'm really torn between the two of them, because I really still liked Ellie, even though it's like, yeah, she did some like really heinous kind of shit with like specifically Nora, because she didn't know that Mel was pregnant. Yeah, it was fucked up, but still, like, I was still kind of on both sides. So at this point, I was like, whatever happens. I'm just gonna let the game kind of tell me the story, because I couldn't pick a side. And so from there,
it doesn't let you, right?
Yeah.
I ended up still feeling Team Ellie at this point. Even throughout all the next bits, I was still Team Ellie, but like, it was getting harder and harder as you go along to just be like, to pick a side for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think the point was to pick sides either, because it is the end of the world. There are no sides. There is those who live and those who die. That's it.
I will say, like, one small negative effect of suspending so much of Abby's campaign away from what a negative effect of spending so much of Abby's campaign away from what Ellie was doing was that when we finally got back to Ellie, I honestly had somewhat forgotten what was going on with her and what her motivations were. Perhaps if I had played the game more in one single straight playthrough, that wouldn't have been an issue, but to be honest,
the pacing is weird. Like it felt necessary, but also I really would love to see that experiment of somebody who plays the game in chronological order and see how the story differs, because it really feel it's really hard to put myself in that mindset. From there, Abby does overcome. Go ahead.
Sorry, just want to insert one more thing. I think almost a more interesting structure would be to have it alternate between Abby and Ellie. So, like, you would play Ellie day one, Abby day one, and so on and so forth.
Oh, you mean like Halo 2, where the Arbiter goes back and forth to Master Chief?
Yeah, like I could see that being an interesting way of doing it, which I guess is what I said. Basically, play it in chronological order. Of
the thing too is that, like, I feel like the beginning of the game, it seemed to suggest that was the direction that the game was going to be going, because it was a little bit as Ellie, a little bit as Abby, a little bit as Ellie, a little bit as Abby, and ended up not really being representative of what was to come. But
yeah,
I mean, I feel like ultimately we can't know with certainty whether it would have actually made it better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from here on, I'm going to go from here to the end of the game, just to get it all out, and then we can get our final thoughts in, and we can kind of, if you guys want to interject, please. So from here, Abby overcomes Ellie. She's punching Ellie down. Like, Ellie is beaten, and then Dina comes in. Dina tries to protect Ellie. Abby has Dina about to slit her throat, and Ellie says she's pregnant, and Abby goes good, trying to basically like tit for tat with Mel, and then Lev stops Abby. This is the point where we sort of see it's like, oh no, you don't have to always go through with your vengeance. Like, you can walk away. From there, Abby and Lev leave, and Ellie is just left there bleeding and just unconscious. So from there, we see it's a bit of a time jump. We see Ellie has now a house with Dina, their baby, which is JJ, which is not. It stands for Jesse Joel, which is really sad. Well, kind of. Neil Druckmann said that JJ, or one of the J's, doesn't stand for Junior.
Yeah. It's super obvious. JJ has got to be Jesse Joel, for the especially named after something important to the two parents of this child. The two parents being Dina and Ellie at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse being the bio dad, very important to Dina, and Joel being Ellie's adoptive dad. For now, Ellie's adoptive son.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying nothing was confirmed.
Yeah, like it's all assumption.
It's confirmed in my head.
Yeah, it's my head.
That's fine. It's your story.
It's my head canon.
It's my. I wrote it. It's my story. You're welcome.
Yeah, I own these characters. How dare you, Naughty Dog? So from there, Ellie starts having some sort of like PTSD flashbacks of Joel's death. You
After
can tell
hurting
that it's,
goats or sheep.
Yeah, you can tell that it's still affecting her. From there, Dina calms her down, and then Tommy comes. Apparently, he's not dead. This was the only time where I was like, "Oh shit, Tommy's actually alive." I thought he was going to be dead.
Yeah, he got shot in the face. He didn't get shot in the head, technically. So
yeah, and he has a limp, and he's also like you can tell that his face is like severely affected by it.
Yeah, he's got serious scarring from being shot in the face.
I'm surprised he managed to get back to Jackson. Regardless, he says that he figured out where Abby is, that they're in Santa Barbara. Ellie's like, okay, and Dina tries to stop her from going. Later that night, Ellie decides, I'm going to go, and Dina tries to stop her one last time, and Ellie's like, I have to do this. From there, we switch back to Abby and Lev. The two of them are looking for the Fireflies. They find a radio station where the Fireflies used to be. They contact somebody. We assume it's the Fireflies. There's some speculation that it wasn't actually, that it might have been the Rattlers. Regardless, they figure out the Rattlers capture Abby and Lev, and we find this new faction of slave traders.
Fun fact, the big Rattler guy was played by Travis Willingham, who is married to Laura Bailey, who is the voice of Abby.
Okay. That's actually kind of cool.
She did all the mocap and everything as well.
Mm-hmm. So from here, Ellie finally reaches Santa Barbara. She finds the boat that they were staying in. She finds out where they were going. She then gets captured, or gets captured by one of the traps that the Rattlers set up. She gets impaled by a tree branch. There's a clicker also hanging. And from there, she kills Travis Willingham's character. She kills the other guy and then interrogates Travis Willingham's character. She gets bitten and he's like, "Oh, do you want me to tell? I'll tell you where Abby is if you let me live." And she like looks at it and kind of scoffs because obviously she's immune. She kills him, finds out where Abby is, starts making her way through the Rattler compound. She starts a prison break. From there, she then finds out where Abby is. Abby is on the pillars on the beach, which we don't know exactly what that is. Ellie reaches Abby and finds out that Abby is tied to these pillars on the beach, and she is basically being starved to death. It's this really fucked up scenery that we see, and it's really haunting. And she cuts Abby down. Abby then lets Lev down. They go to the boats. Abby is really like emancipated, like she's really skinny. It's really like off-putting in a lot of ways. Like we can tell that she's gone through hell in the last few weeks.
Still pretty jacked, like still in pretty good shape.
Yeah, but
she's slowed down quite a bit though from being in captivity.
Sure,
yeah,
but
like we can tell that she's been truly like affected by this, and her hair is like super messed up as well.
It got cut off, right?
Yeah, and like it just started. It just started like. It started growing out now.
If you turn around in that section and look at like one of the other pillars, it looks like there's an Abby lookalike there that I saw.
Went to that pillar first and was very confused when I couldn't interact with it.
Right. And I turned around and I was just like, "Who the hell did I just really? This isn't. This is Abby up here still."
So I was confused in a similar manner when you first broke into the jail, and the person that you struggle with also kind of looks like Abby. Am I wrong on that? The jailer who they get the keys from.
Honestly, I don't
remember that
person. I never thought that anyone wasn't Abby except for Abby, so I'm completely
you're the odd one out.
Apparently.
Right,
again.
Alex, go for it.
Okay, so finally, Ellie is like, "No, you are going to fight me right here, right now." She threatens Lev's life because Lev is basically unconscious at this point because he's been starved as well. Abby's like, "Fine, fuck it, we'll fight." And they start fighting, and it's this really brutal fight where this time you're playing as Ellie, and you almost don't want to do this yourself because you're like, what is the fucking point of this? We can also tell that Ellie is also kind of like she hasn't been eating herself because she's super skinny as well, like compared to where she was at the beginning of the game. From there, they fight. Ellie has basically she's won over Abby. She's about to kill her. She's drowning her. Abby bites off her fingers. Her I think it's her pinky and her ring finger. And so then Ellie kind of comes to her senses, like, what the fuck have I been doing this whole time? And she lets Abby go. Abby, like, she starts like kind of freaking out. Abby comes, like, she realizes that she lives, and she basically just gets on the boat and leaves. And then Ellie's kind of left there on her own. From there, we see one final time jump to the house again. We see it's a really cool shot of the missing fingers of just Ellie's hand. She goes inside the house. She sees everything is gone except for her room, and she then finds the guitar. She picks it up. She realizes she can't play it anymore because she's missing two very important fingers. She puts the guitar down and leaves, and we get a really, really beautiful shot to end The Last of Us Part 2. So that's the recap of the entire game. Holy shit.
Wow, good job.
Yeah, I'm actually really proud of myself with that one. So very quickly, what are our thoughts about the story and how it concludes by the end of it? Because we've talked pretty well up to this point, but I think like there was a lot that happened in this Santa Barbara sequence.
I like the fan theory that's out there that because Ellie didn't react to the house being empty, and like,
actually I have that the whole quote here pulled up if you want me to.
I don't think we need the whole quote, but
like summarize it.
She didn't freak out over the house being empty or discovering any of this because she's already been to Jackson. She knows where JJ and where Dina are, and this is her coming to this is her coming to the point where she understands the path she's been on and it's not the right path, and that this is her saying goodbye to Joel by going, seeing the guitar, leaving it behind, and then returning to her family. And I like that.
Speaking
myself.
speaking of the returning to Joel, I did forget there was two final flashbacks. We see the
Oh,
barn
yes.
we see the barn sequence, and this is the point where we see like, oh, Joel because there's the homophobic guy,
The bigot,
and
yeah.
and Joel like tries to intervene, and Ellie's like, I don't need your help. Later, she goes and talks to him like later that night, and this is the final encounter that the two of them have.
This
And
is actually the
Yeah.
last thing she said to him.
yeah, and it's this really, really beautiful moment. This really shows just how fucking good actors Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson are, because there's this, the line that Ellie goes, I don't think I can forgive you, but I really want to try. And he is choking up so hard, and he's like, I'd like that. It was this really, really important scene that it's like, though their relationship has always been kind of at odds ever since what happened in Salt Lake, they still love each other. Like, and there's kind of nothing will change that. And it was always like that up until the end. And it was kind of at that moment, then we get like the guitar at the end where it's like, oh, Ellie realizes she can't play it anymore. And she kind of, this is like what Mitch said, it's her final goodbye, like symbolically, to Joel.
So, first off, to the theory about Dina and JJ being safe back in Jackson, it actually is one of those theories that, to me at least, makes sense logistically, because Dina and JJ were left with this, huge farmhouse that they had goats that they had to take care of every day. I feel like it would make sense that eventually she would reach a point of like, I just logistically can't manage this all by myself. I have to go back and live with the in-laws. Or are they even in-laws
There's
in this
the
case?
letter from Dina's mother as well that you find when you go back with Ellie, and the fact that Ellie also doesn't react to that. Like, she would be in a, like, if me in her shoes, or me understanding who Ellie is as a character, if she knows that the only thing she has left in her life is Dina and is JJ, she comes back to an empty house, she's gonna flip her shit.
And
Because
she
we've
did.
seen how defensive she can be about the people she cares about, and she didn't do that.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is on the subject of the final cutscene between Joel and Ellie, great scene. This is another one of those alternate reality questions, though, of would the game maybe have been better if they had shown that scene earlier on? Because like I feel like up until that point, I was still kind of left confused severely about Ellie's choice to kind of like keep pursuing Abby over and over and over again. And it's like, on one hand, I thought that was a great way to end cap the game. But on the other hand, I spent so much of that game, like, really not on Ellie's side, perhaps a little bit too much so.
I think had that reveal come earlier, it would have skewed it. Like, I think Naughty Dog and the way Neil Druckmann and his co-writer wrote this really does toe the line between, like, we're having this discussion now, who did you most
Side with.
Whose side were you on? Whose story did you most like jive with? And I think had that reveal come earlier than playing through the Abby section, be like, why am I playing through this asshole section who took Ellie's second chance away from her, knowing that they were on this redemption path themselves? Getting that reveal at the end just adds so much emotion. Thinking back through the entire events of the game, to me, it's the perfect way for them to end cap this experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I think the pacing of the game kind of is a little bit all over the place, where I do wish that there was a little bit more linearity to it. But I think this scene in particular really does just like, it puts the final, like, there's like like what you were saying is like, why did Ellie go this far? And it's because she does care about Joel at the end of the day. And I just don't think, I think it impacts the moment becomes more impactful of where it was placed, and that you finally get the, oh, this is why. It's not like like, I think it was important that it was at the end.
Yeah. And just speaking specifically, like the end segment with all of Santa Barbara and everything. I just before she goes, like when you first get to the farmhouse and everything, and you see her interacting with Dina and JJ, you think, oh, this is going to be the end. Great. Whatever. But then there's like 4 more hours of gameplay left afterwards. And I didn't dislike that. But
Yeah.
what I definitely found myself like, especially as you're going through with Ellie and she has the panic attack and everything, you're just like, okay, you know what? No, I have to be on Ellie's side right now. She has to go finish this and everything. But then you get through that whole segment, where they finally introduce a new mechanic of the pinned up zombies where you can release them, and have them go take out all the people for you if you want. The when she finally gets to Abby, sees Abby and realizes what she's been through, then she gets up to the boat and it's just she has that, she sees the blood on herself and has the flashback to Joel's bloody face on the ground. I'm just like, no, you could, you run, don't do it, and no, she has to go and try and get the last word in, and the game doesn't let you lose and that be like a branching story path or anything like that. It's you have to win the fight, even though at the end you don't necessarily kill Abby, because she's at the the thing that stops Ellie from drowning Abby specifically is she gets the flashback of approaching Joel on the porch to ask for the second chance, and that sort of pulls her out of it. Wait, no, give her a second chance, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I took from that, and I was just like, oh God, thank God that they can just go their separate ways at this point.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe the issue that I have personally is that up until like throughout Ellie's initial section of the game, I feel like the game has a very specific rhythm of we're going to play a little bit of gameplay as Ellie, and then we're going to be presented with a flashback that kind of further fleshes out her motivations. And like, I feel like perhaps if this final cutscene between her and Joel had happened more closer to this rhythm of the earlier flashbacks that we had of her, maybe it would have like kind of felt a little bit more natural.
Perhaps.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
it's entirely possible. But
Ultimately, we can speculate and sit here all day and wonder, oh, wouldn't it have been better if they rearranged the scenes this way or that way? Ultimately, I thought that what we got was still very solid.
There's got to be a chronological supercut of all the cutscenes and stuff online at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the game, you get chapter select. If you wanted it to be a different experience, you could dictate the experience any way you do want. The last thing I'm going to say, for me, this conversation, the conversations I've been reading online, the Spoilercast I've been consuming, I didn't think this before tonight, but I think this is one of the best games I've ever played. It has supplanted The Last of Us on my top 10 games list of all time after the conversation we just had. It is, at least in my perspective, like in my opinion, it is an absolute masterpiece. It is more than a game. It is art. It is subjective. It is everything I had hoped it could have been, and I cannot say any more good thing. I mean, there are bad things about this game, but I think they're bad with the intent of them being that way, and it's not. It's more of a decision and not. Everything about this game is what I wanted it to be. It's amazing. The story is unlike anything I've ever seen in games. It is a true revenge story. We've never really seen anything to this extent, and I absolutely loved my time with this game.
Me too.
So, I've made it apparent that despite my issues with it, I think that it's nothing less than a great game. When it comes to great games for me, I feel like they tend to fall into one of two categories. They're either consistently good the whole way through, or they have incredibly high highs and also low lows, lower than the lows of the games that are more consistently high. And I feel like this game kind of falls into the latter camp, whereas I felt that Final Fantasy VII Remake and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order before it kind of fell into the former camp. And it's going to be interesting when we get to the end of the year and we talk about what was the game of the year, because like I can totally see the argument for The Last of Us Part 2, even coming from myself, and I can totally see the argument for something more like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
Funny you
I
bring
don't
that
think
up, 'cause
that
Alex and I were actually having this conversation earlier about what we might do when it comes to formatting, and I think, I mean, this is a bit fourth wall breaking, but I don't know if you guys want to do this week or soon. I want to do a roundtable or a player's choice or whatever of what we feel how we feel the rest of the year is going to shake out. Like, go through the releases that are still coming, and if anything we feel could compete with games like Final Fantasy VII, like Persona 5 Royal, like The Last of Us Part 2, in terms of getting to that discussion at the end of the year.
Cyberpunk.
Well, and that's the thing, is I want
Yeah,
to go
we
through
can
that list.
we can have that discussion by the like of what it is. We don't need to sort of get into that right now, but I think that sounds like a really good topic. I want to
I'd be
give
down
my
to do that.
Yeah, I want to give my final thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2 because I have had the most amount of time to think about it in its entirety after completing it, just because I did finish it before all of you. And so I've been kind of like, I've been really marinating on this for a really long time. Last of Us Part 2 is a ambitious story, like beyond anything that I've ever seen done in a game, just in the ambition that they put forward. It's the characters have felt so believable and so real, and every motivation I truly believed, from like every single decision that was made. That was one of like, I very much like integrated myself in the culture war of The Last of Us Part 2, and I really wish I didn't, because I'm so sick of every single thing coming out being a part of the culture war. But there's a part of me that's like, did I play a completely different game from these people? Because this is like a beautiful story that has it made me feel so many emotions. That I'm a fucking husk of a person and I don't feel things a lot during media. Like, I understand what I'm supposed to feel, but I don't truly feel it. Like, I don't get those emotional feelings in my core of feeling uncomfortable during something. I can watch stuff and be fine with it. But this game, there's just the presentation value, and just like, you can tell that this game is like the most triple A game that I've ever played, because of just the presentation value of every single story decision. Agree with them or disagree. And most of them I agree with. I really liked a lot of the time I like having agency of the story, or at least having like this feeling of agency. This game, I was okay with just letting the story happen to me. Whatever was going to happen, whatever Abby was going to do, whatever Ellie was going to do, just letting it happen to me. And I think that this game is, I think it is a genuine masterpiece, in the sense that it might not be, it's not perfect, because I still have some issues with it, like with some of the pacing moments, but I think it is genuinely a masterpiece that just, I don't think I don't think there's anything that you can compare it to right now. And this is a story that I'm going to be thinking about for a long time. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I use the same. It is a masterpiece in every sense of the word. For me, there is no perfect media, whether that be film, television, games, books. Nothing to me is perfect. There's flaws in everything. There's always ways you can poke holes. Maybe you don't agree with decisions here and there, but ultimately, the product that Naughty Dog has put out here is reinventing the way that we are going to consume media of this type moving forward. And I hope, specifically around we didn't even scratch the surface on the accessibility options in this game. Like, there is such a depth of,
There's over
like,
60 features.
this is literally a game that anybody can play. And that is not something you can say about 99.99% of video games. There are people who are legally blind, or like literally could not watch, like, there's just so much thought and care and appreciation for every detail that went into this game. And I'm sure that they racked on some of the decisions that the internet is not in agreement with, and that's fine. You're allowed your opinions, but ultimately they put out a product that they were proud of, that they spent years uh, maturing and iterating and polishing, and I think it's nothing less than a masterpiece.
Yeah. You said that, like, yes, everything has flaws, and I think the flaws are what makes it human, and this is the most like this is a weird, this might be a little bit pretentious, but this is like the most human feeling game that I've ever played, because everything felt absolutely authentic and felt real, and that's what
every moment, every action had weight.
Yes,
and you can't say that about a lot of video games.
It felt like every decision was there intentionally, again, whether you like it or not. And this is a game I cannot wait to continue thinking about. It's this is probably the game that I've thought the most about since completing it, that I've just continuously been thinking about, like, all of the moments of it, all of the decisions, and I can't wait for it to continue being a part of this conversation, like how the first one was. I think with that, I think we can end the conversation, because we could keep going. I could keep going if given the opportunity, and I also don't really want to, because it is pretty late and it's pretty hot in this room. So with that, we are going to end the Last of Us Part 2 Spoilercast. I'd like to thank everyone who is watching on Twitch, everyone who's listening to this on podcast services. You can follow us on Twitter at Press YYZ, and if you want to follow any of my hosts, AJ Fraser, where can people find you?
You can find me all over the internet at Times Hero, capital T, capital H. That's Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff.
Mitch George.
Instagram, Twitter are the easiest ways to get a hold of me, and that is at Mr. Mitch George, Mr. Mitch George.
And Kozi.
You can find me on Twitter at Alex Kazina. I've decided that I'm going to put out a short sort of spoiler-free thread on Twitter of my review of this game in the coming days, so look forward to that. If you didn't find that this sated your desire to hear The Last of Us spoiler thoughts enough.
Right. And if you do like this show, we do also record it every Wednesday live on twitch.tv. And it goes live on podcast services on Sunday at some point whenever I finish it.
Plug your own social stuff. Come on.
Yeah, I'm going to. Okay. I just remembered that part, and I didn't want to forget about it. And if you liked my endless rambling about the story of this game, because I can do that forever, you can follow me on Twitter at blatantly_Alex, Instagram blatantlyAlex, and YouTube at youtube.com/blatantlyAlex. And with that, thank you and good night.
I tried to whistle at the end, it didn't work.
I was trying to think of a quote, like I was going to sing Future Days, but then I thought that might be too much.
Yeah.
Oh, God, my voice is shot.
All right, so I can finally talk about what I really think about The Last of Us 2. Can I?
You could have done that on the podcast, but go for it.
And this game stinks. What a just stinker of a game.
Yeah, your check's in the mail.
I'm glad
thank you.
Saved that for the post show.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of you guys reading off of the script as well. You guys can freely talk about how much you hate it as well now.
Yeah.
Case, that was a good episode.
For anyone still hanging out, I mean, we're still tweaking this Spoilercast format. If you have any feedback, please shoot that our way. We're happy to take any constructive criticism and work that into the next one. And I don't even know what that might be, given what's going on with video game releases. But we'll see.
Yeah. It could be Ghosts. It could be Cyberpunk. It could be Halo. Who knows?
It could be Hamilton. Just saying.
Could be.
I mean, this episode did run long, but it wasn't really any of our faults. It was the
game
quote
is long
unquote.
as fuck.
Exactly. It was the fault of the fact that the game is it's quite a trip.
And so much of it is story, so you kind of have to I didn't feel comfortable skipping over parts of it, because so much of it felt important to that it would come back again later. And this game, of course, is all about the story, and that's kind of what we were mainly discussing.
Story-wise, the overall, it's showing you something because it's gonna come back again later. So
yeah, everything had a purpose.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll let me see who's live right now. Maybe we can send some folks their way, and we can call it a night. Let's go hang out with Mike. Mike's streaming Horizon Zero Dawn. Let's go hang out with Mike for a bit, because I know he would have loved to have been here if he weren't streaming his own thing. So let me just make sure I get the username right. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out, and it's been a blast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go hang out with Mike.
All right. Does the hold on a second? Does the stream automatically switch on your end to you watching Mike the moment that you do the raid option?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Even from
Okay,
mod
so-
view. So,
Sorry, it just
Yeah,
it took
and for me, it stays in mod view just because I mod his channel, but
okay, well,
sorry, it just took me a second for it to switch over.
yeah, I think I have to like manually engage it or just let it do its own thing. But I want to bring that up. Yeah. So yeah, that was a blast, guys. That was really, really good.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit.
My computer is so fucking slow.
Oh god.
I am working on the draft episode right now for this week's show, Alex, because I know you are gonna
I am not
try
gonna
to find
finish
some
it.
time.
I'm not gonna finish it tonight probably, but I'll have it finished.
I figured you wouldn't.
Yeah, just because I've literally been talking basically for the last like 8 hours. between Ubisoft, Predator, and then this, I kind of haven't really had a moment to. I got enough time to eat, and that was it.
So, what were your impressions of the Ubisoft thing? Because I decided early on I'm not really interested in this, and
I enjoyed
I
it.
saw the recap of it, but I wasn't.
I enjoyed it. I will definitely talk a bit. I will talk about that in Devolver on Wednesday.
Yeah, I figured that would come up on Wednesday.
I've got some good thoughts about both of them because I thought they were both very good press conferences personally.
I did not see the Ubisoft thing myself today, so I gotta get caught up on that.
You didn't miss much, to be honest. You
Yeah.
could just find a recap article, and that's probably sufficient.
Yeah.
No new games, but like all the games that they did show deep dives on were actually. I mean, like I'm interested in Watch Dogs. I'm interested in Ascreed. I'm interested in Far Cry.
Did Watch Dogs feel as tone deaf in this world as it could have?
Not really.
No. Okay.
It looked.
I would imagine.
It looked. I mean,
one last week with
yeah, I don't.
So, like, they showed 2 different trailers for Watch Dogs, and like one of them was definitely a little bit more serious in tone, and then the other one was a little bit more like farcical and happy-go-lucky. And I feel like you can look at the second one and be like, this is not really where I wish this game was tonally. But
Got it.
it remains to be seen.
Doing so much fun stuff right now.
I think. I mean, we can talk about this stuff later. I think it's time for people to head to bed,
Yeah.
Okay.
or at least those of us that have to work in the morning.
Yeah, I need to. I
glad
honestly
you
need to
and not
sleep,
Mitch
so-
who was talking the whole time. Man, that guy just talks forever.
All right, I'm gonna go offline.
Yeah, I think I need to too.
Yeah,